Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto became Issei's rival for the title of Harem King and won decisively? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Unbalanced Equation. The last thing he remembered was the tearing. It was not the sharp, clean finality of a blade. It was the sound of reality, of the very fabric of his world, being ripped apart like wet parchment. There had been a scream, Kagai's, a sound of cosmic outrage and agonizing dissolution, and then there had been his own, lost in the roar of collapsing dimensions. He had pushed Sasuke clear, a last, desperate shove. The bright, sterile white of the rabid goddess's final prison had become a swirling, chaotic vortex of colors he had no name for. Chakra, his own, Kurama's, the lingering Ace of the Sage, was torn from him like flesh from bone. It was a sensation of utter, absolute violation. He was an anchor ripped from the seabed, a star pulled from its constellation, and the universe screamed as he was dragged through the void. Kit, hold on. Kurama's roar was the only thing that kept him sane. The fox's own monumental power was a bonfire in the heart of a blizzard, and Naruto clung to it, anchoring his consciousness to the familiar, furious warmth. Then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. He slammed into something solid. Hard-packed earth, slick with mud, met his back with a bone-jarring impact that drove the air from his lungs. The transition from multi-dimensional chaos to simple, brutal gravity was so abrupt he couldn't even gasp. He lay there, stunned, as a new sound filled his ears. Rain. It was a cold, driving rain, and it plastered his torn orange and black jacket to his skin. He opened his eyes. The sky was a bruised, churning purple-black, lit by the jagged, unnatural flicker of city lights. He didn't know what they were. They were too steady to be lightning, too numerous to be stars. He sat up, his body aching in ways he hadn't felt since before the war. The sheer, vibrant power of Six Paths Sage Mode was gone, faded back into the deeper recesses of his soul, leaving him feeling raw and painfully mortal. He was just Naruto, exhausted, battered, and grieving. Sakura, Kakashi, Sasuke. The names were a prayer, a question. The silence that answered him was heavy, absolute. They are not here. Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind, the fox's usual gravelly tone softened by a shared, profound sense of loss. I can't feel them. I can't feel anything. The network, the ley lines of this world, they're wrong. The air is dead. There's no natural energy. Naruto pushed himself to his feet, swaying. He was in a park. Green, manicured grass, metal benches, strange, towering metal poles that shed that cold, artificial light. Beyond the trees, massive structures of glass and steel pierced the angry sky. It was a city, but not one he had ever seen. This was not Konoha. This was not the land of fire. The grief was a physical weight, threatening to drag him to his knees. He had won. He had saved everyone. And his reward was exile. He was alone, in a world that felt alien and hostile. He clenched his fists, the rain dripping from his matted blonde hair. No, he whispered, the single word of vow. He wouldn't break. He had lost his home before. He had been alone before. He would survive this. He just needed. He sniffed the air, beneath the smell of rain, petrichor, and something metallic he couldn't place. Exhaust. He caught another scent. It was faint, but it set every nerve on edge. It smelled like ozone, sulfur, and something sweet. Something rottenly sweet, like flowers left to die in a vase. There, Kurama directed, his senses sharper than Naruto's. That way. Two small lights. One flickering, one burning with a strange, dark heat. Naruto didn't hesitate. Grief could wait. Survival came first. Answers came with survival. He pushed off the ground, and the world blurred. He wasn't using chakra, not yet. This was pure, physical speed, honed by years of war. He moved through the trees like a ghost, a golden blonde blur in the pounding storm. He found them by a large, ornate fountain that wasn't running. A boy and a girl. They looked young, his age maybe, high schoolers, judging by the uniforms. The boy, Issei Hyodo was practically vibrating. Wow, Yuma-chan. This is the best date of my life. I can't believe a girl as beautiful as you would ever agree to go out with me. He was loud, his voice cracking with a desperate, pathetic eagerness. Naruto paused in the shadows of a large oak tree, his senses on high alert. He was an idiot. Naruto could sense that much clear as day. The boy's energy was tiny, a guttering candle flame of life, but it was overlaid with something else. A potential, a seed of power that lay dormant, completely unknown to its owner. The girl, Yuma Amano, was beautiful. Long black hair, a stunning figure, a gentle, shy smile. But to Naruto's senses, she was a lie. The sweet, rotten scent was pouring off her. And the other scent, the dark heat Kurama had sensed, it was her. Issei-kun, she said, her voice like wind chimes. You're so sweet. I had a wonderful time today, too. Really? Issei nearly shouted, pumping his fist. Yes. In your face, Motohama. Perverted trio member no more. The girl giggled. You're so funny. Issei-kun, I have a present for you. To show you how much I enjoyed our date. Would you do something for me? Anything. Issei proclaimed, his chest puffed out, a perverted, idiotic grin plastered on his face. I'll do anything for you. Yuma-chan. Great, she said. Her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Would you die for me? The world seemed to lurch. Issei froze. Huh, Yuma-chan, that's a weird joke. Quote, oh, it's no joke. Her transformation was sickening. Her school uniform melted away, replaced by a scant, bondage-like outfit of black leather. But that wasn't the wrong part. The wrong part was the wings. From her back, a pair of massive, black, feathery wings erupted, scattering a few stray feathers onto the wet pavement. Her eyes, once a warm violet, were now a cold, predatory magenta. But the worst part was the spear. It materialized in her hand, a construct of pure, blinding light. It hummed, and the very air around it seemed to thin, tasting of static and nothing. Naruto's eyes widened. He didn't know what she was, but he knew that spear. It was, on a fundamental level, an attack designed to unmake its target. Issei had fallen onto his backside, scrambling away. His face a mask of pure, uncomprehending terror. Yuma-chan. What is this? A costume. This is a prank, right? You filthy human. The winged woman. Rainer sneered, her voice now a cold, aristocratic hiss. Did you really think I could ever be interested in a pathetic, perverted creature like you? You have something inside you. Something my masters want. But I've been given permission to dispose of personally. She raised the spear. Issei was paralyzed, tears and snot mixing with the rain on his face. Naruto didn't think. He didn't weigh the options. He didn't consider the political ramifications of intervening in a world he didn't understand. He saw a person about to be executed, and he acted. He was in front of Issei before the light spear even left Rainer's hand. His appearance was so sudden, so utterly silent, that Rainer actually flinched. One moment, her prey was cowering. A blonde stranger in a ruined jacket was standing between them, his back to Issei. That's enough, Naruto said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the rain. Rainer stared, bewildered. Who in the hell are you? Get out of the way, human, or I'll kill you, too. I don't think you will, Naruto said. He didn't turn around. He just looked at her, his blue eyes flat and cold. Rainer snarled, insulted. Die. She thrust the spear. It was a blur of light. Faster than any human could track. It didn't hit him. Naruto's hand shot out, not to block, but to parry. His palm, glowing with a faint, bubbling red-orange chakra, slapped the point of the spear. It was not a block, it was a redirection. The spear of light, aimed at his heart, was violently shoved aside, stabbing harmlessly into the concrete fountain, where it exploded, sending shrapnel and superheated water everywhere. The sizzle of his own burning flesh filled the air. Naruto looked at his palm. The red chakra had protected him, but the light had been potent. It had still managed to leave a rapidly healing burn. It was dangerous. Rainer's jaw was open. No human could move that fast. No human could touch a light spear. What What are you? She hissed, genuine fear now creeping into her voice. A stray devil, an exorcist. I'm the guy who's telling you to leave the kid alone and get lost, Naruto said, flexing his steaming hand. For a moment, Reiner's arrogance warred with her fear. Arrogance won. You dare, she shrieked, her pride wounded. She rocketed into the air, hovering 20 feet above him, her wings beating against the storm. You may be fast, but you're still just a filthy ground dweller. I am an angel, a fallen angel. I serve Lord Azazel. Now, I will purify you both. She summoned 3 spears of light, 2 in her hands, 1 floating above her head. They all aimed down at Naruto and the babbling, incoherent Issei behind him. Naruto sighed. It was a sound of profound, bone-deep weariness. He had just finished one war. He didn't have the patience for this. I tried, he said, mostly to himself. He closed his eyes. Now, Kit, now, Kurama. He reached inward, to the vast, burning core of power that was his other half, and pulled. He reached deeper, to the calm, radiant sea of natural energy he had mastered, and opened. The world changed. From Reiner's perspective, the man on the ground, ignited. It was not a fire. It was a sun. A pillar of brilliant, golden-orange chakra erupted from him, so dense, so potent, that it physically pushed the rain back, vaporizing every drop in a 10-foot radius into a cloud of steam. His blonde hair stood on end, blazing like a corona. His jacket billowed, the black patterns on it shifting, forming the 6-path magatama on his back. His eyes were no longer blue. They were gold, the pupils a cross-hatch of sage and fox. 9 black, fist-sized orbs of pure, utter nothingness materialized behind him, floating lazily in a halo. The pressure. It was not demonic. It was not holy. It was everything. It felt like the entire planet's life force had just focused on one single point. Reiner's lungs seized. Her light spears wavered, flickering like they might go out. This was a power she had never known existed. It felt ancient. It felt like the origin of power itself. Naruto didn't even look at her. His head was tilted back, his golden eyes staring at the churning purple-black clouds. He wasn't focused on her at all. In his mind, he and Kurama were staring at something else. A wound. A tear in the sky, invisible to the naked eye, but to his new senses, it was a gaping, bleeding hole in the dimension. It was how he'd arrived. And it wasn't closing. That's bad, Naruto, Kurama growled. We didn't just pass through. We broke the wall. Something else can feel it. Something from the outside. Naruto felt it, too. A cold, ancient hunger from the void, a trillion-mile-long tongue tasting the new opening. He would have to deal with that later. He lowered his gaze, his cross-hatched, golden eyes finally settling on the terrified fallen angel. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His voice was now layered, showing with the power of a 1,000-ton tsunami. I am very tired. I am very lost. And I am not in the mood, he said. He raised one hand. One of the black orbs detached from his back, zipping G to his hand and elongating into a simple, black staff. Go, now, before I unmake you. The word, unmake, hit Reiner with the force of a physical blow. She knew he could do it. She could feel the power in that black staff. It was the very concept of negation. It would not just kill her. It would erase her. Her pride, her mission, her orders, none of it mattered. With a shriek of undiluted terror, she turned and fled, breaking the sound barrier as she vanished into the storm clouds, her remaining light spears dissolving into harmless particles. Naruto watched her go, his expression unreadable. The golden aura around him receded, the 9 orbs melting back into him, the suffocating pressure vanishing as if it had never been. The rain, no longer held at bay, crashed down on him once more. He stood there for a long, silent moment, the only sound the pounding rain and the whimpering of the boy behind him. He turned. Issei Hyodo was staring at him, his eyes wide as dinner plates. Dude, Issei whispered, his voice trembling. Was that a new sacred gear? Are you a devil, an angel? What the hell was that? That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. You just, whoosh. And she was all, and you were like, BZZZZZZZT. Naruto just stared. This was the first inhabitant of this new world he had to interact with. And he was a moron. The sheer emotional and spiritual whiplash of the last 10 minutes, losing his world, the overwhelming grief, the alien sensations, the fallen angel, the tear in the sky, and now, this was too much. Issei Hyodo, his mind finally catching up to the terror it had just witnessed, and then overloaded by the sheer, unearthly power of Naruto's transformation, did the only sensible thing he could. His eyes rolled back into his head, and he fainted face first into a puddle. Naruto sighed. Well, Kurama deadpanned. At least he's quiet now. Naruto nudged the unconscious boy with his foot. He was still alive, just unconscious. He looked up at the sky. What now? He had no bearings, no information, and a hole in the sky he had to worry about. He tensed. A new sensation, a spatial distortion, a circle of glowing, crimson light was appearing on the ground 20 yards away. It was intricate, full of symbols he didn't recognize. A summoning jutsu. No, a transportation jutsu. From the light, 4 figures emerged. He sensed them before he saw them clearly. 4 new, wrong, energies. All of them had that same, ashen sweet, smell as the winged woman, but stronger. More refined, less rotten. A small girl with white hair, eating a chocolate bar, her face completely impassive. A handsome blonde boy with a sword at his hip, a polite smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. A tall, beautiful woman with black hair in a ponytail, who was smiling, a very different kind of smile. It was all predatory grace and amusement. And leading them, a girl with crimson hair so vibrant it looked like fresh blood. She was, in a word, stunning. But it was the power coming off her that put Naruto on guard. It was easily 10 times what the winged woman had. She carried herself with an air of absolute authority. A cage. A daimyo. This was Rias Grimori, and she had just stepped into her territory to find a dead fallen angel's energy signature, a passed-out human, and an equation-breaking variable standing over him. Well, Akano Himahima, the girl with the ponytail, heard, her eyes fixed on Naruto. It seems the party already started. And, my goodness, what a delicious-looking guest. Akano, the crimson-haired girl, Rias, said. Her voice was sharp, cutting off the playful tone. Her own eyes, a striking blue-green, were narrowed, scanning the scene. She saw the fainted Issei. She saw the crater in the fountain. And she saw Naruto. She couldn't get a read on him. He felt human. But that was impossible. The energy signature that had just flared, the one that had made her entire peerage tremble. The one that felt like a son had just been born and died in her territory, it was coming from him. Kaneko, Rias said, her voice low. The small, white-haired girl, Kaneko Tuju, stopped eating. She was staring at Naruto, her golden eyes wide. President, she whispered, her voice barely audible. He's wrong. His power, it's too big. It's like a mountain. No, an ocean. And beneath that, she could sense something else. Something vast and ancient and furious, sleeping inside him. It made her Nekomata senses scream. The blonde boy, Kiba Yuto, had already moved. In a burst of speed that was, to Naruto, laughably slow, he appeared at Naruto's side, his hand a blur as he drew his sword and placed the tip at Naruto's throat. Don't move, Kiba said. His friendly smile now a cold mask. Who are you? What did you do to him? Naruto didn't even look at Kiba. His eyes were locked on Rias. He hadn't flinched. The blade at his throat didn't concern him. He fainted, Naruto said. His voice flat. I stopped the winged woman from killing him. He'll wake up with a headache. Kiba's eyes widened slightly. The man hadn't even tensed. He was either insane, or... Era, Akano said, stepping forward, a crackle of yellow energy playing over her fingers. You'll have to come with us. The president has some questions for you. She flicked her wrist. A bolt of raw, holy lightning lanced through the air, aimed not to kill, but to incapacitate. Naruto still didn't move. The lightning bolt, a weapon that could level a building, struck him. And did absolutely nothing. It splashed against his skin like water. He was, for a fraction of a second, wreathed in yellow electricity that was completely, utterly harmless. He wasn't even using chakra. He was just durable. The residual energy from the war, the toughness of his body, was simply on a different level. Akino's playful smile froze on her face. Her lightning, her holy lightning, the bane of devils, it had been ignored. Kiba, seeing his comrade's attack fail, thrust his sword. Naruto's hand was a blur. He didn't grab the blade. He flicked it, his index and middle finger, GTHENED with a barest wisp of Kurama's chakra, snapped out and tapped the flat of the demonic sword. Crack shing. Kiba's sword, a masterpiece of demonic forging, shattered into a dozen pieces. The hilt, still in Kiba's hand, vibrated so violently it went numb and he dropped it. He stumbled back, staring at his empty, trembling hand, then at the stranger, his mind utterly blank. Silence descended, heavy, cold. Rias Grimori's composure finally broke. This was impossible. Kiba was her knight, a master of speed. Akino was her queen, a master of holy lightning. They were elite, and this stranger, had dismissed them. Broken them, without moving his feet. This was not a stray. This was not a minor threat. This was an Archduke-level problem. Who are you? Rias demanded, and this time, there was no authority in her voice. Just stunned disbelief. I could ask you the same thing, Naruto said, his gaze finally shifting, taking in the four of them. He could sense it now. They were like the winged woman. Fallen. No, that wasn't right. The scent was different. These were devils. That's what she had called them. You smell like ash and pomegranates, he said, his sage-like senses analyzing them. She smelled like a dead bird and ozone. You're different. This statement, so bizarre and yet so accurate, threw them off more than the display of power. Rias, say, the situation was completely out of her control, had to make a choice. Escalate, or de-escalate. She was a Grimoire. She never backed down. She raised her hand. A swirling, chaotic, terrifying vortex of crimson and black energy formed. It was pure, unadulterated destruction. The power of destruction, the signature of her house. It erased matter. It unmade existence. It was her trump card. I will not ask again, Rias said, her voice trembling with the effort of containing the power. Surrender to the house of Grimoire, or be erased. The air grew heavy. The very ground seemed to groan under the weight of her power. Kiba and Akino scrambled to get behind her. Kaneko was already there. Naruto just looked at the swirling vortex of death. He looked at her. He saw the pride. He saw the fear under the pride. He saw a young woman, a child, trying to command a battlefield she did not understand. He was so tired of this. I told you, he said, his voice dropping, I'm not in the mood. He let his power out. He didn't activate the golden cloak. He didn't summon the orbs. He just released the pressure. He let the world feel exactly who and what he was. He let them feel the power of the sage. He let them feel the titanic, ancient, boiling rage of the nine-tailed fox. It was not an attack. It was a statement. The world stopped. Rias's power of destruction faltered. The vortex shrank. The energy, so violent and chaotic, was cowed. It was like a raging bonfire being snuffed out by the sheer, crushing pressure of the bottom of the ocean. Rias Grimori's knees buckled. She gasped, a sound torn from her throat. She didn't fall, but only because her pride wouldn't let her. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her hand was shaking so hard she could barely maintain the remnant of her attack. Kiba was on his knees. He was using his broken hilt as a crutch, his whole body shaking. He couldn't breathe. It felt like a mountain had been placed on his chest. Akino had dropped her smile entirely. She was pale, her hands clenched at her sides, her eyes wide with a terror that was almost aroused. She had never felt such dominance. Kaneko was the worst off. Her Nekomata instincts were in full, screaming panic. This was an apex predator. This was a primordial force. She had her hands over her ears, her eyes shut tight, her body trembling, a low, keening hiss escaping her lips. The pressure was suffocating. It was absolute. It was the undeniable presence of a being that existed on a completely different tier of reality. It was a power that made Searsex's aura feel like a polite suggestion. Naruto stepped forward, The rain vaporized before it could touch him. His eyes were no longer blue. They were the burning, slitted crimson of the Kyuubi, overlaid with the sage's cross hatch. He stopped, standing 5 feet from Rias. He looked down at the last, flickering ember of her destruction, magic. "You're devils," he stated. The winged woman was a fallen angel. "This boy is human. This is your territory. I'm putting the pieces together." He looked up, his terrifying eyes locking with hers. "I don't know where I am. I don't know what this world is. I have just watched everything I have ever known be destroyed. I am grieving. I am lost. And I am holding onto my sanity by a single thread." His voice was a low, terrifying growl. "You are the IRST intelligent beings of Met who haven't tried to kill me outright, almost. So you are going to lower your sparkler. You are going to take me someplace dry. You are going to give me food. And then, you are going to give me answers." He leaned in, the crimson light of his eyes illuminating her pale, terrified face. "Or, so help me, I will find someone who will. And I will walk through you to do it. Do you understand me?" Quote, Rias Grimoire, heiress to the Grimoire clan, sister of the Lucifer, a king, in her own right, looked into the eyes of the single most powerful being she had ever encountered. She did the only thing she could. The only thing her intelligence, her strategy, demanded. She de-escalated. She forced her power down. It vanished with a sad fut. She held up a single, trembling hand. I understand," she stammered, her voice a reedy whisper. She forced herself to stand straight, to meet his gaze, even though every instinct screamed at her to bow. We can do that." Naruto stared at her for one more, long second. The pressure vanished. It didn't fade. It just switched off. The world rushed back in. The sound of the rain. The distant city. The gasping breaths of Kiba and Kaneko. Naruto's eyes faded back to their normal, ocean blue. He was just a boy in a torn jacket again. But they knew. They all knew what they had just seen. "Good," Naruto said, his voice now just tired. He gestured with his chin to the magic circle. "Lead the way. And I'm serious about the food. I'm starving." Rias nodded, still numb. She turned to her peerage. "Akano, Kiba, grab Issei. We're going back to the clubroom. Now." Kiba and Akano scrambled to obey. They hauled the sopping, unconscious Issei to his feet. Rias began to activate the transportation circle. Naruto watched it, his sharp shinobi eyes memorizing every line, every rune, every particle of energy. Kurama was doing the same. "You're not from here, are you?" Rias asked, her voice still shaky. Naruto looked at the alien city. At the devils beside him, at the dark, wounded sky. "No," he said, a universe of loss in that single word. "I'm not." The crimson light enveloped him, and in a flash, the park was empty. Save for a shattered fountain and the smell of ozone, ash, and a power this world had never known. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Terms of Engagement. The flash of crimson light faded, replaced by the warm, opulent interior of a large, wood-paneled room. It smelled of old books, lemon-scented polish, and Earl Grey tea. A fireplace crackled merrily in one corner, casting flickering shadows over plush velvet sofas and a large, imposing mahogany desk. It was the absolute antithesis of the rain-lashed, violent park. Naruto's senses, which had been screaming at him for the last hour, dialed back from a shriek to a low, wary hum. He stood in the center of the room, a sopping wet, battle-worn anomaly in a place of decadent comfort. The entire Grimoire peerage seemed to exhale at once, the crushing, tangible weight of his presence having lifted the moment they'd teleported. Kiba and Akano, still looking shaken, unceremoniously dumped the unconscious Issei onto one of the velvet sofas. He landed with a wet squelch, mud from the park smearing the pristine fabric. Rias didn't even seem to notice. She moved with practiced grace, rounding her desk and sitting in the large, throne-like chair. She laced her fingers together, her blue-green eyes fixed on Naruto. The mask of the king was back in place, but he could see the cracks. He could see the faint, residual tremor in her hands. He could smell the sharp, coppery tang of adrenaline-laced fear beneath her perfume. "Kaneko," Rias said, her voice admirably steady. Tea. And sandwiches. A lot of them. For our guest. The small, white-haired girl, Kaneko, who had been hiding behind Akeno, flinched when Rias spoke. She looked at Naruto, her golden eyes wide and unblinking. She was, he sensed, utterly, profoundly terrified of him. The other thing inside him. She could feel Kurama, and it was like a mouse being asked to serve a dragon. But she was also disciplined. She nodded once, a tiny, jerking motion, and vanished through a side door. Please, Rias said, gesturing to the sofa opposite the one Issei was drooling on. Sit. Naruto didn't move. He scanned the room. One door where Kaneko left. The main door he'd be walking to later. Two large windows, currently showing nothing but the black, rain-lashed night. No other energy signatures. No traps. I'll stand, he said. Akeno, who had been watching him with a disturbing, feverish intensity, let out a soft laugh. Her playful, era persona was back, but it felt sharper. More genuine. My, he's powerful and cautious. President, you've really found a prize. He is not a prize. Akeno, Rias snapped, her composure cracking for a second. He is a guest. She looked back at Naruto. I will honor my word. I will give you answers. In exchange for your cooperation. For now, that just means not doing what you did in the park. In my territory. Naruto crossed his arms. The torn sleeve of his jacket, burned by the light spear, flapped slightly. My cooperation depends on your answers. You first. Kaneko returned, pushing a rattling tea trolley. She placed it by the sofa, her movements stiff. She didn't just bring tea. She brought a three-tiered platter piled high with sandwiches, cucumber, egg salad, ham and cheese, along with a pot of tea and a plate of cookies. Naruto's stomach growled, a loud, obnoxious, human sound that ripped the supernatural tension in the room to shreds. Akeno giggled. Hiba hid a smile. Rias blinked. Naruto's eyes locked onto the food. His, I'll stand, policy was instantly forgotten. He strode over, sat on the sofa, and grabbed a sandwich. Then another. Then a third. He didn't just eat. He inhaled. He had burned through an entire war, been ripped across dimensions, and had his entire chakra network scoured. He was running on fumes. The sight of this monster, this being who had faced down her power of destruction and won, devouring finger sandwiches like a starving refugee, was so profoundly bizarre that Rias was, for a moment, speechless. It was disarming. It made him seem young. Okay, Naruto said, his mouth full of ham and cheese. Talk. Why did that bird woman try to kill the idiot? Rias took a deep breath, collecting herself. Her name is Rainer. She is a fallen angel. The boy, Issei Hyodo, is a human who possesses a sacred gear. Naruto paused, a cookie halfway to his mouth. What? A sacred gear? Hiba picked up, his voice smooth and informative. He was standing by the fireplace, trying to project casualness, but he never let his hand stray far from where his sword should have been. They are miracles, bestowed upon humans by the God of the Bible. They grant their users incredible, reality-defying abilities. Some are common. Some are extraordinarily rare. Issei's is one of the latter. Rainer was part of a rogue faction of fallen angels, led by a cadre class leader named Kokobile. Rias continued, her tone all business. They've been operating in our territory, collecting sacred gears by any means necessary. For Issei, that meant stealing his gear. Her secondary objective was to simply kill him. His gear is one that can't be stolen, only transferred upon the wielder's death. And only then with difficulty. So, she was ordered to eliminate him as a potential threat. Naruto processed this. God, angels, fallen angels, devils, sacred gears. It was a new system, a new set of rules. But the game was the same. Power, factions, and the people crushed between them. So, you're devils, he stated. You smell like it. Ash, pomegranates, and something old. Akeno purred. My, what a specific nose you have. We are, indeed, devils. I am Akeno Himahima, Rias's queen. She gestured. Hiba Yudo, her knight. Kaneko Tuju, her rook. And she is Rias Grimori, our king. This is her peerage. Peerage. King. Queen. Rook. Knight. Naruto repeated, his eyes narrowing. Like a chess set. Exactly, Rias said, leaning forward. We are reincarnated devils. Most of us were once human or other beings. Rias, as a high-class devil, was granted her own evil pieces, a set based on chess, given to her by her brother. She can use these pieces to reincarnate beings she feels are worthy, granting them new life, new power, and a place in her family. In her service, Naruto stopped eating. The room grew very, very still. He placed the half-eaten cookie back on the plate. And him? Naruto asked, his voice quiet. He nodded at Issei. Which piece was he going to be? Rias's eyes met his. She felt that cold, probing intelligence, that clarity he possessed. He wasn't just asking. He was connecting. He'd seen the whole board. She held his gaze. She was a king. She would not lie. Not to this thing. He would know. Rainer set a date with him. We knew she would make her move tonight. My plan. Rias took a steadying breath. My plan was to let her attack him. Let her kill him. Akino's smile faded. Kiba looked at the floor. In that moment, Rias continued. Her voice cold and pragmatic. He would have a dying wish. A desire to live. I would have appeared, driven Rainer off, and offered him that choice. A new life. As my servant. He possesses a very rare sacred gear. One of the 13 Longinus. He would have taken all 8 of my pawn pieces to reincarnate. Silence. The only sound was the crackling fire and the rain on the windows. Naruto didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared at her. His blue eyes, once so open and human-looking while he was eating, were now flat. They were the eyes of a soldier. The eyes of a man who had seen too many generals sacrifice too many pawns. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. You were going to let him die. It was not an accusation. It was a judgment, a statement of fact that ing in the air like the executioner's axe. Rias bristled, standing up from her chair, her own crimson aura of a king, rising to meet his perceived challenge. It is how our system works. He would have been given a new life. A life of power, of prestige, in my family. He would have been saved from a pathetic, meaningless human death. Saved, Naruto repeated. The word was poison in his mouth. You were going to watch a person be murdered, so you could buy his soul with your pieces. You were going to let him be butchered to get a new weapon for your chess set. You don't understand our world. Rias shot back, her fear being rapidly replaced by anger. Who was he to judge her? He would have been grateful. Would he? Naruto stood up. He didn't activate his power. He didn't need to. His disgust was a physical force, more potent than any aura. It rolled off him in waves, making Rias's Grimoire pride feel cheap and hollow. I've met people like you, he said, his voice low. People who see others as tools, as assets, as pawns. People who talk about duty and necessity while they stand on a pile of corpses. You think you're a king. You're just a slaver, in a prettier dress. How dare you? Rias roared, her crimson aura flaring, the power of destruction. The teacups on the trolley rattled, the tea inside them disintegrating. You know nothing of what we. I know what I saw. Naruto cut her off, his voice like steel. I saw a scared, stupid kid about to be shish kebabbed by a psycho with wings. And you were just watching, waiting for your moment. You're no better than Orochimaru. You're no better than Obito. The names meant nothing to her, but the sheer, unadulterated venom he spat them with made her flinch. Kiba had his hand on a new sword he'd apparently summoned. Akino had sparks of lightning dancing on her fingertips. Kaneko looked like she was about to be sick. The moral chasm between them was absolute. Naruto's entire life had been a fight against this exact ideology, the strong using the weak, the value of a person being measured by their power or utility. He had fought cages over this. He had fought gods over this. And Rias Grimoire had just, in her first real conversation with him, embodied it all. The tension was so thick it was about to ignite. It was a new standoff, but this one was ideological, and it was far more dangerous than the one in the park. A loud, pathetic groan broke the silence. Everyone froze. Issei Hyodo sat up on the couch, rubbing his head. Man, my head, that was the worst dream. I dreamed Yuma-chan grew wings, and his eyes, bleary and confused, slowly focused. He saw the crackling fireplace. He saw Kiba in a battle stance. He saw Akeno, wreathed in electricity. He saw Kaneko, pale and huddled in the corner. He saw Naruto, emanating pure, cold fury. And then he saw Rias Grimori, surrounded by a crimson aura of destructive power. Who why? Issei whispered, his eyes going wide. It's Rias Grimori, the crimson-haired ruined princess. And Akeno-san. And Kaneko-chan. And Kiba, you're all here, in the old school building. Am I in heaven? He scrambled off the couch, his eyes darting between the girls, a look of ecstatic, religious fervor on his face. He then spotted Naruto. Oh, and you're here too, super awesome golden power dude. Man, that was nuts. What you did, the whoosh and the bang and the POW. That was. He looked from Naruto, to Rias, to his own sopping wet, muddy clothes. He touched his chest, where Rainer's spear had been aimed. Wait, he said, his voice dropping. That wasn't a dream. Was it? Rias, her aura vanishing in a puff of pure exasperation, rubbed the bridge of her nose. No, Hyodo, it was not a dream. So, Yuma-chan, she really tried to kill me. Issei's face went pale. Yes, Naruto said, his anger momentarily sidelined by the sheer absurdity of the situation. She was a fallen angel. These guys, he gestured to the peerage, are devils. And they were just telling me how they were planning to let her stab you, so that they could reincarnate you as their pawn. Naruto delivered the line with all the biting sarcasm he could muster, expecting Issei to react with horror, with fear, with anger. Issei's brain, however, took a different route. He processed fallen angel, devils, and stab. And he, mostly, discarded them. He locked onto reincarnate and pawn. He looked at Rias Grimori, the single most beautiful and popular girl in his entire school. He looked at Akeno Himehime, the second most beautiful. He looked at Kaneko, the school's lowly mascot. His mind, a one-track instrument of pure, undistilled teenage lust, put the pieces together. Wait, he breathed, reincarnated, as your servant, to live with you, to serve you. He looked at Rias's bust, at Akeno's. A small trickle of blood dripped from his nose. Boobies, he shouted, a geyser of blood now erupting from his nostrils. He stumbled, dizzy. It's my destiny. He staggered to his feet, struck a pose that was equal parts idiotic and triumphant, and pointed a trembling finger at the ceiling. I see it now. This is the first step on my path. The path to becoming the Harem King. Silence. Absolute, profound, deafening silence. Rias Grimori, heiress of a great demonic house, stared at him as if he were a new, undiscovered species of mold. Kiba looked physically ill. Akeno's purr had died in her throat, replaced by a look of clinical, baffled analysis. Kaneko just whispered, pervert. Naruto just stared. His rage, his moral disgust, his grief, all of it was short-circuited by the single most moronic declaration he had ever heard in his entire life. He turned his head slowly, looking at Rias with an expression of pure, unadulterated bafflement. What is a harem king? The question, so genuine and confused, broke the spell. Akeno burst into a fit of surprised, silvery giggles. Era. He's quite the ambitious one, isn't he? Hyodo, please, Rias said, pinching the bridge of her nose, a migraine clearly forming. Sit down. And stop bleeding on the floor. You are a complication. A complication? No, I'm your greatest ally, Issei proclaimed, even as he wobbled. I'll protect you, President. I'll use my new, what's it? My sacred gear. He looked at his left arm. How do I? He was interrupted by a new, violent flash of light in the center of the room. It was not the crimson of the Grimori circle. This one was bright, fiery orange, and it formed an intricate crest of a large, swooping bird. From it, a voice boomed, arrogant and laced with static. It was a projection, not a person. Rias Grimori, the voice announced, and it was a voice that expected to be obeyed. The arrangements are finalized. Your father has denied your childish appeal for a rating game. Lord Riser Phoenix will arrive in Kuo in 1 week's time to claim his bride and finalize the contract. Be prepared. The magic circle and the voice vanished, leaving a faint smell of brimstone. The room, which had just recovered from Issei's idiocy, plunged back into a new, heavier silence. Issei looked confused. Wait, claim, bride, what does that mean? Akino's face was dark. All playfulness was gone, replaced by a cold, quiet anger. It means, she said, her voice dangerously soft, that our president is being forced into an arranged marriage. Marriage, Issei shrieked. But, you can't. You're my king. My future harem queen. Quote. Rias ignored him. She was standing perfectly still, but Naruto could see her hands, clenched into white-knuckled fists at her side. A tiny, crimson aura of destruction was leaking from her, making the teacups on the trolley begin to rattle and crack. Denied, she whispered, her voice shaking with a fury that was deep and personal. Of course he denied it. He, my father, my brother, they want this. President, Kiba said, his voice laced with genuine concern. Naruto had been watching, listening. He didn't care about devils, or factions, or harem kings. But he understood this. He had seen it a dozen times. In the Hyuga clan, in the political maneuverings of the great nations. A cage, painted gold and called duty. He cut through the noise. You're in an arranged marriage, he stated. Rias's head snapped toward him, her blue-green eyes flashing with anger and, was that despair? It's a political alliance, a contract between two great and powerful houses. It is my duty as the Grimori heiress. This, Riser Phoenix, guy, Naruto said. You don't like him. He's an arrogant, cruel, narcissistic, lecherous pig. She spat, all pretense of composure gone. He treats his own peerage, his harem, like things. Like property. But he is a high-class devil, from a pillar clan, and my family believes this alliance. And you don't want to do it, Naruto finished for her. It was so simple, so clear. Rias stopped, stunned by the simple, non-judgmental observation. She looked from him, to her peerage, to the babbling Issei. No, she finally admitted. The single word full of a weariness that went bone deep. I don't. Yeah, Issei chimed in, pumping his fist. Fight it, President. We'll think of something. I'll challenge him. With my sacred gear. He held up his arm, which did nothing. Any minute now. Naruto sighed. He'd gotten his answers. This wasn't his world. This wasn't his problem. The end. Jeer at her. Pawn. Speech was still fresh. He should just leave. He would leave. He walked to the main door, his hand resting on the large, ornate brass handle. He paused. He looked back. He saw Issei, a well-meaning, perverted fool. He saw Kiba and Akino and Kaneko, loyal, strong, but ultimately powerless against their king's fate. And he saw Rias, a girl, not much older than him, trapped in a cage made of duty and family. A girl who was about to be handed over, like a pawn, to an asshole. He let go of the doorknob. I really, he said, to no one in particular, hate people who think they can own other people. He turned around. The entire room was staring at him. You, he said, pointing at Rias. Do you want to marry this Riser guy? Rias looked at him, confused by the simplicity of the question. No, I do not. Okay. Naruto nodded once, as if this were the only piece of information that mattered. Then don't. Rias let out a laugh. It was a single, bitter, harsh sound. Don't. Did you not just hear the announcement? It's done. My family has decreed it. I have no choice. You always have a choice, Naruto said, walking back toward the center of the room. He felt Kurama stir inside him, a low, approving rumble. The fox hated this nobility crap as much as he did. I'll make it simple for you, Naruto said, stopping in front of her desk. He was no longer angry. He was just decided. You don't want to go. So, you're not going to. And how? Rias challenged. Do you propose I stop the heir to the House of Phoenix, when my own family, including my brother, the Lucifer, have sanctioned it? Naruto shrugged, as if the answer were the most obvious thing in the world. If he comes here to try and make you, I'll stop him. The room was, once again, completely silent. Issei's jaw was open. Hiba and Akino were staring, thunderstruck. Rias looked at him as if he had just grown a second head. This being, who had no stake in her world, no political power, no reason, was offering to stand against one of the most powerful clans in the underworld. Why? She whispered, her voice trembling. You don't even know me. You despise me. You just called me a slaver. I did, Naruto agreed, his voice flat. And your system, it stinks. What you were going to do to Issei, it's wrong. I'm not going to forget that. He met her eyes, and his were clear, resolute. But I also hate bullies. And I really hate people who try to force others to do things they don't want to do. This riser guy sounds like a first-class asshole. I don't like assholes. He gave a small, one-shouldered shrug. So, I'll stop him. It was not a boast. It was not an offer. It was a simple, unadorned statement of fact. Issei was the first to speak. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We'll both stop him. The Harem King and the Golden Power Dude. We'll be a team. Naruto ignored him. He was still locked on Rias. Rias Grimori looked at this stranger. This anomaly. He wasn't doing it for power. He wasn't doing it for her, not in the way Issei meant. He wasn't asking for a reward. He was doing it because he had decided it was the right thing to do. She had spent her entire life surrounded by political maneuvering, by backroom deals, by power plays and contracts. She had never encountered this clarity, this simplicity. For the first time that night, Rias Grimori's gaze on Naruto Uzumaki held no fear. It held no calculation. It held a dawning, terrifying, hope. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. A King's Pride, a Pilar's Contempt. The room was so quiet. The only sound was Issei Hyodo's jaw clicking shut. Rias Grimori stood frozen behind her desk, her hands flat on the mahogany. She was staring at Naruto, her mind visibly trying to process the sheer, stunning simplicity of his offer. I'll stop him. Not, we'll find a way. Not, let's make a plan. Just, I will. Akino was the first to find her voice. She let out a low, breathless laugh. My, just like that. You speak of Riser Phoenix as if he's a common street thug. Not the heir to a pillar clan, famed for his immortality. Nothing is immortal, Naruto said, his voice flat. He'd crossed his arms, his gaze unwavering. Everything that's immortal just has a gimmick. A high-speed healing factor, a separate life source, a trick. You just haven't found the off switch. Yeah, Issei chimed in, pumping his fist, his bravado returning instantly. That's what I'm talking about. We'll find his off switch. We'll poke him with a stick. A holy stick. Or maybe my sacred gear. Boosted gear, activate. He held up his left arm, which remained stubbornly, disappointingly human. Okay. So, maybe later. But we'll get him. Rias finally let out a shaky breath. You are truly serious. I don't make offers I can't keep, Naruto said. He wants to take you. You don't want to go. The conversation's over. Before Rias could even begin to formulate a response to this new, impossible reality, the very air in the room tore open. The Grimori teleportation circle, still faintly visible on the floor, was violently overridden. A new magic circle, a blinding, fiery orange crest of a massive, swooping bird, blazed to life in the center of the room. The heat was instantaneous, drying the rain from Naruto's jacket and making the air shimmer. No, Rias whispered, her face going pale. He's not supposed to be here for a week. The announcement just. Bullies are always impatient, Naruto said, his eyes narrowing. A pillar of fire erupted from the circle. And from it, a man stepped forth. He was tall, blonde, and dressed in flamboyant, aristocratic crimson robes that looked ridiculously out of place. He radiated an aura of overwhelming, suffocating arrogance. This was Riser Phoenix, and he was not alone. Behind him, in perfect, silent formation, stepped his peerage. 15 women, all of them stunningly beautiful, all wearing variations of a revealing, maid-like uniform. They were a vision of a harem seeker's dream, but Naruto's eyes saw something else. He saw their faces. Their eyes were blank, resigned. It was the look of prisoners, not partners. Rias, my darling, Riser boomed, spreading his arms wide, his voice grating. Riser has come to collect his prize. I grew so tired of waiting for your father's tedious formalities to conclude. I decided to come and claim you personally. His gaze swept the room, his lip curling in disgust. He dismissed Akano, Kiba, and Kaneko as if they were furniture. His eyes landed on Issei. And what is this? A low-class male, a pawn. Rias, darling, your standards for companionship have truly fallen. Then, he saw Naruto. He couldn't sense any demonic power. Just a human, in tattered, damp clothes. And a human. Riser's laugh was a high, mocking cackle. Rias, have you taken to collecting strays? You must clean this trash out before our wedding. Riser will not have filth infesting his new home. This was the moment. Issei, filled with a cocktail of terror and a desperate need to impress, puffed out his chest. Hey, why you can't talk to the president like that? She's the crimson-haired ruin princess. And she's not gonna marry an arrogant, bleach-blonde jerk like you. Riser stopped. He slowly turned his head to Issei. The smile on his face was gone, replaced by a look of cold, murderous offense. And who are you, filth, to tell Riser Phoenix what he can and cannot do? Riser didn't even move. He just snapped his fingers. Ubeluna. Incinerate this thing. A tall woman with purple hair, his queen, stepped forward. Her face was as blank as the others. Yes, Lord Riser. She raised a hand, and a massive, swirling vortex of purple and black fire formed, aimed directly at Issei. Issei! Rias screamed. Kiba blurred, drawing his sword to intercept, but he was too far away. The fireball shot across the room, and splashed against a barrier of golden-orange energy. Naruto hadn't moved from his spot, but his hand was outstretched. A semi-transparent, fox-headed construct of pure power had materialized in front of Issei, tanking the hit without even shimmering. Ubeluna's eyes widened. Riser's face twitched. I'm getting, Naruto said, his voice dangerously low as he lowered his hand, the golden aura fading, really tired of fire. He looked at Issei, who was trembling behind him. Stay out of this, Harem King. You're going to get yourself killed. But, Issei stammered. But nothing. Naruto cut him off, not even looking at him. His eyes were locked on Riser. Riser snarled. A human, with a sacred gear. How interesting. Another pet for Rias. It doesn't matter. You are all vermin. He stalked forward, his gaze returning to Rias. His arrogance unshaken. Enough of this. Rias, my love, we are leaving. Now. He shot his hand out and grabbed her wrist. Hard. Rias cried out, a small, sharp sound of pain. Riser, let go of me. This is my... ... This is my territory now. My sweet, he hissed, his grip tightening, his aristocratic mask slipping to reveal the bully beneath. And you are my property. Now, you will. She said no. The words, spoken so calmly, cut through Riser's tirade like a kunai through silk. Riser froze. He turned his head, his eyes burning with a fiery, golden light. What did you say, little human? I said, Naruto repeated, and he took one, single, deliberate step forward. Let her go. For a second, the universe seemed to pause. Riser Phoenix, heir to a great house, a high-class devil, was being given an order by a human, in front of his fiancée and his harem. The insult was absolute. You, a human, dare. Riser roared, his voice cracking with sheer, apoplectic rage. You, dare. Ubeluna, all of you, kill him. Burn him to cinders. I want his ashes. Ubeluna and two other members of his peerage lunged forward, summoning a combined barrage of fire, lightning, and demonic energy. Naruto didn't even look at them. He just moved. He wasn't there anymore. He was a golden blonde blur, a whisper of displaced air. Kiba, the knight of the Grimoire peerage, didn't even see him move. Naruto was suddenly inside Riser's guard, standing between him and Rias. Riser's eyes were still on the spot where Naruto had been. What? Riser started. Naruto's hand shot out. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't an attack. It was a simple, insulting, slap. His open palm connected with Riser's wrist, the crack of the impact echoing in the room. Riser's grip was broken, and he stumbled back, clutching his hand. His face a mask of stunned disbelief. You touched me. Riser shrieked, the violation absolute. He erupted in a column of golden-orange fire, his true power unleashed. The entire Orc building's interior vaporized. The velvet sofas, the mahogany desk, the old books, all of it turned to superheated ash. Burn. Burn in the undying flames of the Phenex. Deee. The entire room was a raging inferno, the heat so intense Rias's peerage had to shield their eyes. Riser stood in the center, laughing, his arms outstretched, a god of his own personal sun. A fitting end for such. His laughter died in his throat. The smoke cleared. The fire was still there. But it was bending. It was parting around a single, calm figure. Naruto was standing in the exact same spot, completely unharmed. The fire was warping around him, held at bay by an invisible, swirling aura. But he was different. His skin wasn't burning. His clothes weren't even singed. His blonde hair was spiked, blazing with a golden-orange light. His eyes were no longer blue. They were a brilliant, burning gold, the pupils a perfect cross-hatch. Pigmentation, a deep orange, framed his eyes. He had become more. The pressure that Rias had felt in the park returned, but this time it wasn't the raw, raging power of the Kyuubi. This was something else. It was calm. It was absolute. It was the feeling of the planet itself. It was the combined, impossible weight of all natural energy, focused into one, single point. What is this power? Riser stammered, his own flames faltering, shrinking back from the sheer, holy purity of the aura. It's not demonic. It's not holy. It's wrong. You talk too much, Naruto said. His voice was layered, echoing with a calm, deep resonance. He raised his right hand. A swirling, perfect sphere of blue chakra spun to life in his palm. But it, too, was different. It wasn't just blue. It was glowing. It hummed with a sound like a high mountain wind. It was not just chakra. It was senjutsu. It was life itself, compressed into an attack. A pathetic parlor trick. Riser roared, his fear making him reckless. He summoned his full power. Great wings of fire erupting from his back. I am the immortal Riser Phenex. I cannot be. Naruto didn't charge. He just walked forward. Riser, in his arrogance, met him head-on. A spear of fire in his hand. Die. The moment Riser's fire spear touched Naruto's senjutsu-infused Rasengan, it didn't explode. It dissolved. The demonic fire was snuffed out, as if it had been doused by an ocean. The natural energy, the life, of the Rasengan, was the perfect antithesis to Riser's demonic fire. Riser's eyes went wide with a terror he had never, in his long, immortal life, ever known. Naruto didn't slow down. He pushed the Rasengan forward. It connected with Riser's chest. There was no grand explosion. There was only a high-pitched, grinding whine. It was the sound of a diamond drill on an obsidian wall. The Rasengan didn't just hit Riser. It drilled. Riser's scream was inhuman. He was blasted backward, not just out of the room, but through the 3F. Thick stone wall of the old-school building. He rocketed out into the night storm, a comet of screaming, panicked fire, and crashed into the forest 1,000 yards away, the impact felling a dozen trees. In the corner of the ruined, now open-air room, a magic circle flickered. Searsex Lucifer and his queen, Graphia Lucifuge, were watching, their faces masks of pure, stunned disbelief. Searsex had been about to intervene. He was too late. Silence. The only sound was the wind and the rain, now pouring into the massive, gaping hole in the building. Rias's peerage was frozen. Issei's jaw was on the floor. Riser's entire harem was standing in a perfect, silent, shell-shocked line. A moment later, a roar of rage came from the forest. Why you You think that can kill me? You think that can stop me? Riser shot into the sky, his wings of fire blazing. He was healing. The massive, grinding wound in his chest was closing, flames stitching the flesh back together. I regenerate. I am eternal. I am a Phenex. He hovered there, panting, his arrogance returning. You insect. You will pay for. He stopped. He looked at his chest. The wound, it wasn't healing. Not properly. The flames were licking at the edges, but the flesh beneath, it was scarred. A pale, ugly, puckered mark was forming, a permanent blemish on his perfect body. What? He whispered, touching the scar. What is this? Why isn't it? A voice spoke from right behind him. Your immortality is just high-speed regeneration. A parlor trick. Riser screamed and spun around. Naruto was just there, floating in the air, his golden aura blazing against the black, stormy sky. He was completely dry, the rain vaporizing inches from his skin. How? Riser stammered, scrambling back. How are you? The energy I hit you with, Naruto continued, his voice calm, like a teacher explaining a lesson, wasn't demonic. It wasn't holy. It was natural, the life energy of the world itself. It's the opposite of your power. It's not destroying you. It's unplugging you, severing your connection to whatever power you think you have. That scar, it's permanent. You're not immortal anymore. Not from me. The terror that gripped Riser Phoenix was absolute. This monster hadn't just hurt him. He had broken him. He had taken his one defining trait and erased it. No, Riser shrieked, a sound of pure, animalistic fear. I am a Phenex. I am. He lunged, his wings of fire sputtering, weak. It was a clumsy, desperate, pathetic attack. Naruto didn't even bother with another Rasengan. He raised his hand. A massive, golden-orange chakra construct, Kuramas, formed around him. It didn't form the whole fox. It was just one, titanic, 50-foot-long hand. The hand swatted Riser out of the sky like a gnat. It didn't just hit him. It caught him. The giant, golden fingers closed around the immortal Phoenix, squeezing him. Riser's wings were crushed. His bones snapped. He screamed, a high-pitched, muffled sound. The hand, with Riser trapped inside, drifted back to the ruined orc building. It stopped, hovering over the mud-filled crater, and opened its palm. Riser, broken, his fine robes torn and bloody, his power gone, snuffed out by the senjutsu, was dropped unceremoniously into the mud. He was conscious. He was sobbing. A pathetic, broken, mortal man. The giant, golden hand faded. Naruto landed softly on the edge of the hole, his golden aura receding, his eyes fading back to blue. The rain, no longer held back, instantly plastered his hair to his face. He looked at Riser's 15 peerage members. They were staring at him, their blank, doll-like expressions shattered, replaced by awe and fear and hope. Naruto looked at them, then at the sobbing heap in the mud. He can't hurt you anymore, Naruto said, his voice quiet. The engagement is over. You're free. Go wherever you want. He then turned and walked back into the ruined building, past the stunned Grimoire peerage. He looked at Rias. It's done, he said, as if he'd just finished a chore. He won't bother you again. Rias was trembling. Her hand was over her mouth. She was looking at him. But she wasn't seeing a monster. She wasn't seeing a political variable. She wasn't seeing a guest. She was seeing the one who had done what her entire family, what her brother, the Lucifer, would not. She was seeing the man who had, in 5 minutes, broken an immortal, and given her back her life. Her gaze was locked on him. It was a look of profound, earth-shattering, permanent change. That, a new voice said, was extraordinary. The magic circle in the corner flared to life. Sears X Lucifer, the Mao himself, stepped through, his long, crimson hair identical to his sister's. His face was not angry. It was not pleased. It was grave. He looked at the weeping Riser in the mud. He looked at the permanent scar on Riser's chest. He looked at his sister's face. And then, Sears X turned his full, impossibly powerful gaze on the blonde stranger. Rias, my sister, Sears said, his voice quiet but echoing with power. It appears, your engagement is, indeed, over. He took a step toward Naruto, his eyes sweeping over him, analyzing the residual, fading senjutsu. And you, Uzumaki Naruto, you and I, we need to have a very, very long talk. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. Ripples and Recruits. The ruined north wall of the Occult Research Club building was now a gaping wound, letting in the cold, driving rain and the scent of ozone and mud. The 5 remaining individuals, Rias, Akano, Kiba, Kaneko, and Issei, were huddled near the still crackling fireplace, the only part of the room that hadn't been either vaporized or soaked. Riser's peerage, after a long, stunned, silent moment, had simply vanished, a flurry of orange teleportation circles blinking them away, free for the first time in years. In the center of the devastation, near the crater that now held a sobbing, broken Riser Phoenix, stood 3 beings who represented the apex of 3 completely different worlds. Sears Lucifer, the Mao, was a column of calm, terrifying power. His crimson aura was suppressed, but its sheer weight was still enough to make the air feel thick. Graphia Lucifuge, his queen, stood at his side, her silver-haired, maid-like demeanor a perfect mask of cold, analytical observation. And then there was Naruto. He was just standing there. His sage mode had faded, leaving him looking like a sopping wet, exhausted teenager in a tattered jacket. He was, by all appearances, the least impressive person there. Yet he was the one everyone was watching. Graphia, Sears said, his voice quiet, not looking away from Naruto. Please, see to him. He gestured to the mud. Take him back to the Phoenix estate. Inform his father that the engagement is terminated. By mutual consent. The mutual consent was a political bomb on a gaping wound. Graphia bowed. Yes, Lord Lucifer. She moved with silent, impossible grace, her gaze lingering on Naruto for one long, clinical second. She raised a hand, and the weeping form of Riser Phoenix was encased in a block of ice. Then vanished in a flicker of silver light. Now, they were truly alone. Sears Lucifer turned his full attention to Naruto. The pressure in the room quadrupled. It wasn't an attack, it was the simple, crushing gravity of a super devil, a being who commanded legions and ruled a nation. It was a power designed to make kings kneel. Uzumaki Naruto, Sears began, his voice a regal, resonating baritone. You have, in the span of approximately 10 minutes, assaulted the heir of a pillar clan, permanently crippled his primary ability, and single-handedly dissolved a political ally. Ants that has been in the works for 5 years. He paused, letting the weight of the accusation sink in. Naruto just wiped some rain from his face. You forgot the first part. He grabbed her. She told him no. He didn't listen. The sheer, unadulterated simplicity of the response threw Sears off. He had expected denial. He had expected posturing. He had expected a demand for a reward. He had not expected indifference. Yes, Sears conceded, glancing at his sister, who was watching Naruto with an expression of pure, breathless awe. He did. Rias, I am not displeased with this outcome. Your happiness is, and always has been, my primary concern. Then why did you let it happen? Rias's voice was sharp, the first time she had ever spoken to her brother with anything less than perfect respect. Politics, Sears said, his voice heavy with the burden of that one word. Peace is a fragile thing, Rias. Our power is built on alliances, on stability. I could not, as Lucifer, simply deny the Phoenix clan. It would have shown weakness. He looked back at Naruto. But you are not bound by our rules. You are an unknown, a variable, a pillar of one. I'm not a pillar, Naruto said. I'm just a guy who wants a dry change of clothes and a hot meal. And then I want to be left alone. I'm afraid, Sears said, a small, sad smile touching his lips, that being left alone is no longer an option for you. Not after a display like that. You have just announced your presence to all 3 factions. And to others. As if summoned by the words, a new magic circle flared to life on the floor. This one wasn't crimson, or orange. It was a dark, complex purple, crackling with black lightning. It smelled of ozone and crows. Oh, for heaven's sake, Searsex sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He was watching. From the circle, a man who looked to be in his 20s stepped out. He had black hair with blonde bangs, a roguish grin, and was wearing a V-neck shirt under a black trench coat. He looked less like a faction leader and more like a delinquent. But the power he radiated was on par with Searsex. It was ancient, dark, and laced with a crackling, fallen, energy. This was Azazel, governor of the fallen angels. He didn't look at Searsex. He didn't look at Rias. His eyes, a sharp, intelligent violet, were locked on Naruto. He was vibrating WITH an energy that was completely different from Searsex's heavy gravity. It was pure, unfiltered, manic curiosity. That was incredible. Azazel burst out, his voice giddy. He marched right past the Mao, ignoring all protocol, and stopped a foot from Naruto. He snapped his fingers, and a small, green, holographic display appeared in the air, replaying the exact moment Naruto's Rasengan had connected with Riser. See that, right there, Azazel pointed, his finger tracing the energy lines on the hologram. Your energy. It's not holy. It's not demonic. It's not light. It's life. It's natural energy. You're drawing it from the planet. It didn't just burn his regenerative ability, it rewrote it. It told his cells, no, you're done, and they listened. That's senjutsu. True, perfect senjutsu. How did you do it? How do you balance it? The failure rate for mortals is, like, 99%. They all turn to stone. But you've mastered it. What's the power source? Is it your soul? Is it that other thing I'm sensing? The big, angry, gargantuan ball of, go away or I'll eat you, energy you've got stuffed in your stomach. He was poking Naruto's chest. Come on, spill. I'm Azazel, by the way. I collect sacred gears. I study everything. And you, my friend, are the most interesting, everything, I've seen in 1,000 years. Naruto just stared at him. He looked at the poking finger. He looked at Searsex, who looked like a man suffering from a profound migraine. He looked at Issei, who was hiding behind Kiba from the two new, terrifyingly powerful beings. Naruto gently, but firmly, pushed Azazel's hand away. It's called Sage Mode, Naruto said, his voice flat with exhaustion. It's energy from the world. You have to be balanced to use it. He looked Azazel up and down. You're not. You'd turn into a frog statue. Azazel, rather than being insulted, gasped with delight. A frog statue? Why a frog? Is it related to the source of the teaching? Oh, this is fantastic. Azazel, Searsex cut in, his Mao voice returning, laced with annoyance. This is a delicate situation. This is not one of your laboratories. Oh, lighten up, Sis-chan, Azazel waved him off. Not taking his eyes off Naruto. This is better than a lab. This kid just broke the laws of magic as we know them. He's a walking, talking revolution. The higher-ups at the Grigori are going to lose their minds. And Michael. Oh, Michael is going to be fascinated. He suddenly got serious. His grin faded. That is, unless something else gets to him first. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Searsex's own expression turned grave. You felt it, too. Felt it. Azazel scoffed. My sensors went off the charts. The dimensional tear you two made, he pointed from Searsex to Naruto. No, not you, Sis. You. He pointed directly at Naruto's chest. You're a rival. You didn't just slip through. You tore a hole, and it's not closing. And there's something on the other side. Something old, something hungry. It's tasting the air of our world. We've been monitoring it for the last 2 days. Ever since you showed up. This was the subplot, the real threat. Naruto had felt it in the park. The cold, ancient hunger. Nile, Naruto said, the name coming to him unbidden. The Void Weaver. Azazel and Searsex both froze. Their heads snapped toward him. What did you just say? Searsex asked, his voice deadly serious. I don't know, Naruto said, frowning. It's just what I felt. It is what the void calls itself. Kit, Kurama rumbled in his mind. The fox's voice grave. The moment we tore through, we brushed against it. A mind of nothing. A being of unmaking. Azazel and Sirzex exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated dread. This, Sirzex said, changes everything. This is no longer a conversation for a ruined building. He looked at Naruto, his gaze no longer just wary, but desperate. Uzumaki Naruto, you are no longer a guest. You are, whether you like it or not, the single most important strategic asset on this planet. We must talk. We need your help. Naruto looked at the two faction leaders. He looked at Rias and her peerage. He looked at the gaping hole in the wall. His old life was gone. His old war was over. And he had just been dropped, head first, into a new one. Fine, Naruto said, his voice ragged. We'll talk, but not here, and not like this. He gestured to his ruined, sopping clothes. First, I need a place to stay. And food, real food. Not just sandwiches. 2 days later, Naruto was standing in the living room of a penthouse apartment in the most expensive, secure building in Kuo. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and furniture so modern it was uncomfortable. Sirzex had provided it. It was, as Naruto knew, a gift, a sign of respect, and a very, very gilded cage. He could feel the monitoring spells woven into the concrete. He'd already disabled them. He'd spent the last 48 hours in a whirlwind of information. Long talks with Sirzex and a far too enthusiastic Azazel. They'd told him everything. The Great War, the death of the biblical god, the uneasy truce, the sacred gear system, and the Tyr, the Void Weaver, which they had now taken to calling Nile, as he had. It was a primordial entity, older than their system, drawn to the anomaly of his arrival and the sudden, massive influx of his chakra, a power source outside their reality. He was, in effect, the man who had accidentally invited a cosmic horror to dinner. He was restless. He was bored. He was used to action, to purpose. Now, he was a political time bomb, waiting to be handled. He'd been given a new wardrobe, a simple black and orange track suit. A concession he'd forced on a very confused Graphia, a bank account with a stupid amount of money, and a warning to lie low. He hated lying low. He left the apartment, ignoring the two disguised devils Sirzex had posted in the lobby, and just walked. He needed to get the feel of this new city. It was loud. It smelled of metal and chemicals. And it was weak. The normal humans. He could feel their tiny, guttering life forces. They were so fragile. His feet, driven by a sixth sense he didn't question, led him away from the bustling city center, toward the quieter, older parts of town. He found himself standing outside an old, European-style church. It was in disrepair, but it wasn't abandoned. He sensed energies, the faint, lingering sadness of holy power. But beneath it, he smelled that rotten scent. The one from Rainer. But different. This wasn't a fallen angel. This was a devil. No. Multiple devils. Hiding in a church. This world is stupid. Kurama grumbled. They're not even trying to hide. They are. Naruto thought back, his eyes narrowing. They're hiding behind the holy. They're using the church as a shield. A deception. He stepped into the shadows of a nearby alley, his senses expanding. He saw them. 2 men in priests' robes, standing by the gate. But they were wrong. Their smiles were too wide, their eyes too cold. And their scent was pure devil. Then, he saw her. A young girl, with long, corn-silk blonde hair, wearing a novice's nun habit. She was kneeling in the church's overgrown garden, a small, wounded bird in her cupped hands. A soft, emerald green light was glowing from her palms. Naruto watched, his eyes widening, as the bird's broken wing mended. She chirped, and the bird chirped back, before testing its new wing and fluttering to a nearby branch. The girl smiled, a smile of such pure, unadulterated kindness that it actually hurt Naruto to see it. It was a light in the middle of all this rot. Asia-san, Lord Diodora will be arriving soon. You must come inside and prepare. One of the priests called out, his voice oily and false. The girl, Asia, flinched, her bright smile vanishing. Why yes, father, right away. She stood, her head bowed, and hurried inside the church, the two priests following her like jailers. Naruto's eyes were cold. Diodora, he said, the name tasting foul. Diodora Astaroth, a pillar clan. Searsex mentioned him. A fanatic, in the worst ways. They're using her, Kurama stated, his voice a low, furious growl. That light, that was a sacred gear. A twilight healing, Azazel called it. A power to heal anything. Even devils. Naruto had heard about her. Asya Argento, the witch of the church. A kind, pious girl who had healed a devil by accident. For her kindness, her god had excommunicated her, cast her out. She had been found by the fallen, then traded to the devils. To Diodora, she was a tool, a prize, a pawn. Naruto hated that word. He could walk away. This was not his business. This was devil politics. This was Diodora Astaroth, a pillar clan, another riser Phoenix. Getting involved would shatter the fragile peace Searsex was so desperate to maintain. It would be inconvenient. He looked at the church door where the kind, sad girl had vanished. He thought of her smile. He thought of the word property. Inconvenient, he muttered. He stepped out of the shadows. He didn't knock. He walked up the stone steps and kicked the heavy oak doors. Boom. The doors, thick enough to stop a battering ram, were blasted off their hinges. Flying across the nave and smashing into the pews. They disintegrated into a shower of splinters and iron. "Who dares?" a voice shrieked. Naruto stood in the ruined doorway. The late afternoon sun silhouetting him, his orange and black tracksuit a blaze of color in the dusty, dim church. He saw Asia, cowering near the altar. He saw the two priests. And he saw a new figure, a man with long, light blue hair, dressed in extravagant robes, his face a mask of aristocratic rage. Diodora Astaroth. You. Diodora spat, his eyes widening in recognition. You're him. The animal who assaulted Lord Riser. You've got a dirty house, Naruto said, his voice flat as he walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the desecrated space. Devils, hiding in a church. Using a kind girl as a battery. This is my asset. Diodora shrieked, his arrogance returning. She is my property, given to me by the Grigori. You have no right. I'm really, Naruto said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, starting to hate that word. Kill him. Diodora commanded his priests. Kill him now. The two devils lunged, their robes melting away to reveal demonic forms. Their hands wreathed in dark energy. Naruto moved. He wasn't in sage mode. He didn't need it. This was pure, cage-level, wartime taijutsu. The first devil threw a punch. Naruto parried the arm, his hand a blur. Striking the elbow. The crack of the bone snapping was sickeningly loud. As the devil screamed, Naruto spun, a high kick catching the second devil in the temple. The second devil didn't even make a sound. He just dropped, unconscious before he hit the floor. The first devil, clutching his broken arm, tried to scramble back. Naruto was on him, his hand grabbing the devil's face. He didn't kill him. He just squeezed. The sound of crushing bone was muffled, and the devil went limp. It had taken 4 seconds. Diodora Astaroth, who had been posturing a moment before, was now pale, his hands shaking. He was a schemer, not a fighter. He had just watched his elite guards be dismantled like toys. And now see here, Diodora stammered, holding up a hand. Let's be reasonable. This is a misunderstanding. I am Diodora Astaroth. You are an ally of Lord Lucifer. We are on the same side. Naruto just kept walking, his steps slow, measured, implacable. Stay back. Diodora panicked. I will have your head for this. Asia, heal me. Get in front of me. He won't hurt you. He grabbed the terrified nun, yanking her by the arm and shoving her in front of him like a shield. Asia cried out, her eyes screwed shut, trembling, expecting the blow to land. It never came. She opened her eyes. The blonde stranger had stopped. He was standing 5 feet away. And he wasn't looking at Diodora. He was looking at her. His eyes, a blue so clear and deep it hurt, were kind. They weren't angry. They weren't cold. They were just sad. My name is Naruto, he said. His voice soft, cutting through the tense silence. He's lying. He's a devil. He's been using you. I'm something else. And I'm not going to let him, or anyone else, ever hurt you again. Diodora, enraged by being ignored, raised his free hand. You dare speak to my property. Die. He launched a spear of demonic energy, aimed right at Naruto's head. Naruto didn't even look at it. He raised his left hand, and a hiss of compressed air shot from his palm. Futon. Atsugai, wind release, pressure damage. It was a tiny version of the jutsu, no bigger than a bullet. The wind bullet hit the demonic spear. The spear shattered, its energy scattering harmlessly. The wind bullet, its momentum barely slowed, continued on. Diodora's eyes widened. He tried to move. The wind bullet struck him in the right knee. It wasn't a clean hole. The compressed, rotating wind shredded the joint. Bone, ligament, and demonic flesh vaporized. Diodora's scream was a high, thin, piercing shriek. He collapsed, his shield-like grip on Asia vanishing as he fell, clutching the ruins of his leg. Naruto was in motion. He crossed the distance, scooping up the trembling, falling Asia into his arms, bridal style. Before she could even hit the floor, he stepped back, putting himself between her and the screaming, writhing devil on the ground. You animal, Diodora howled, clutching his leg. You mutilated me. My leg. I am a pillar. Sirzax he will flay you for this. Tell him, Naruto said, his voice cold as ice. Tell him what you were doing. Tell him you used her as a shield. Tell him to bring it on. He looked down at Asia. She was staring up at him, her green eyes wide with terror, confusion, and a dawning, fragile hope. You're safe now, he said, his voice soft again. I promise. He turned, and with the kind, excommunicated nun in his arms, he walked out of the desecrated church, leaving the screaming lord of the Astaroth clan bleeding on the floor. He arrived back at his apartment too, a crowd. The entire Grimoire peerage was in his living room. Rias, Akeno, Kiba, and Kaneko. And Issei. They were sitting on his uncomfortable, modern sofas. A pile of takeout boxes on the coffee table. Naruto-kun, Rias said, standing, her voice a mix of relief and something else. We were worried. You've been gone all day. We brought food. As a housewarming. Then, they all saw what he was carrying. Is that a nun? Issei shouted, his eyes bugging out, a small trickle of blood appearing at his nose. He kidnapped a nun. Dude, that's hardcore. Rias's eyes widened, recognition dawning. That's Ossia Argento, the witch of the church. The one Diodora. Oh, no. Rias looked at Naruto's cold, set face. She looked at the terrified girl in his arms. She looked at the door. Her political king brain went into overdrive. The ripples from the riser fight, they weren't ripples. This was a tidal wave. Naruto hadn't just meddled. He had just, for the second time in 3 days, brutally assaulted the heir of a major pillar clan and stolen their property. This was a catastrophe. This was political suicide. Naruto ignored them all. He walked past Rias, past the goggling Issei, and gently set Asia down on the softest sofa. She was still trembling. You're safe here, he said again, kneeling in front of her. No one will hurt you. Do you want some food? Asia just stared at him, her mind clearly broken by the day's events. The room was silent, save for Issei's confused sputtering. Rias was pale, her mind racing. Akeno was watching Naruto with a dark, fascinated smile. Kiba just looked, impressed. And then, there was a small movement. Kaneko, who had been sitting on the arm of a chair, silently eating a bar of chocolate, slid off her perch. She had been watching. She, more than anyone, could feel the universe of power coiled inside Naruto. She could feel the Kurama monster, a being of rage that made her Nekomata instincts scream. But, she could also feel Naruto. The sage. The vast, calm, ocean of life energy that contained the monster. That balanced it. She had watched him walk in, carrying this new, scared girl. She had seen the way he handled her. Gently. Like she was precious. Not like a tool, Rias. Not like a perverted prize, Issei. Just like a person. Kaneko walked, her footsteps silent, across the expensive rug. She walked past Rias. She walked past Issei. She stopped right to Naruto, who was still kneeling in front of Asia. And then, Kaneko Tuju, the girl who hated perverts, who distrusted all men, and who was terrified of the monster inside him, sat down. She sat on the floor, right to Naruto's feet, tucked her legs under her, and went back to eating her chocolate bar. Everyone froze. Issei's jaw dropped. Kaneko-chan just sat. Naruto, surprised, looked down at the top of her white head. He was confused, but he was also a being of empathy. He understood kinship. He understood loneliness. He reached out, and, just as he had with Kurama so long ago, he rested his hand gently on her head. "Hey," he said, his voice soft. Kaneko just leaned into the touch. A tiny bit. "Hey," she whispered back. Rias Grimori looked at the scene. She looked at the cat girl who had just adopted her new protector. She looked at the ex-nun, who was now his project. And she looked at Issei, who was staring at the scene with a look of pure, utter jealousy. The rivalry for Harem King. It was happening. And Issei wasn't even in the game. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. The Sword and the Sage. The tension in Naruto's penthouse was a physical thing. It was thick, sharp, and smelled like expensive tea and ozone. Asia Argento was curled on the massive, modern sofa, her small frame wrapped in a cashmere blanket, her eyes wide and still red from crying. Kaneko was a small, silent sentinel on the floor to her, her gaze fixed on Rias, her expression uncharacteristically fierce, as if daring her king to say the wrong thing. Rias Grimori was pacing. She was a general whose carefully laid plans had just been torched. Again, by a single, unpredictable, and overwhelmingly powerful soldier. "Do you have any idea," she said, her voice strained, "what you have just done?" Naruto was in the kitchen, his back to them, making a sandwich. The audacity of it was breathtaking. He had just declared war on a second pillar clan, and he was calmly spreading mayonnaise on rye. "I stopped a bully," Naruto said, his voice slightly muffled. "And I saved her." He gestured with the knife toward Asia. He was using her as a human shield. "Rias. What did you want me to do?" "Let him. I wanted you to call me." Rias burst out, her crimson hair seeming to crackle. "I wanted you to let me handle it. Diodora Astaroth is a snake, but he is a politically powerful snake. My brother just finished smoothing things over with the Phoenix clan. And now you mutilated him. You stole his property." The moment the word property left her lips, she regretted it. Naruto stopped. He didn't turn around, but his shoulders went rigid. Kaneko let out a low, warning hiss. "He did the right thing, President." Kaneko's voice was a low, dangerous monotone. "That man, he was filth. He smelled like riser." Rias flinched, as if she'd been slapped. That comparison, from Kaneko, was a brutal blow. Naruto finally turned. He wasn't in sage mode. He wasn't glowing. He was just Naruto. And his blue eyes were sharp with a clarity that cut Rias to the core. "Is that all she is to you, Rias? Property? A political problem? Another pawn?" "No," Rias said, her hands clenching. That's not. It's complicated, Naruto. You can't just punch your way through centuries of devil law." "I can," Naruto said. "It was so simple, so final, and I will, if your law says it's okay to treat people like things. You want to be a king. Fine, but you're a lousy one if you're more worried about a bully's feelings than about her." He pointed at Asia. The words hung in the air. A devastating, unanswerable judgment. Issei, who had been completely silent, finally spoke. He's not wrong, President. That Diodora guy sounds like a total douche. And Asia-chan. She's super cute. We should protect her. Yeah, as the future harem king, I decree that all cute girls must be protected from douchebags." He struck a pose. Ch was ruined when his nose started to bleed. Rias looked from Issei's idiotic, yet fundamentally decent support, to Kaneko's unwavering, silent loyalty, to Akino's dark, impressed smile. Her entire peerage was against her. They were all, in their own way, siding with him. Rias Gramori, the king, let out a long, slow breath. The anger, the politics, the fear, it all deflated, leaving only a bone-deep weariness. Fine, she said. She walked over and sat on the sofa, a safe distance from Asia. She can stay. With you. You've taken responsibility for her, Naruto. In the eyes of our world, you have claimed her. The Astaroth clan, and my brother, will see it as such. Naruto just shrugged and took a bite of his sandwich. Good, let them. You've painted a target on your back, Rias said. Her voice soft, full of a strange, new mix of dread and admiration. And on all of us. Naruto swallowed. I've had a target on my back since the day I was born, Rias. I'm used to it, at least this time. The food's better. 2 days later, Naruto was a student at Kuo Academy. Rias had insisted. It was, she'd argued, the only way to keep an eye on him, and maintain a low profile. It was, he knew, a complete lie. It was her trying to tether her new robe Biju to something. He agreed, mostly because he was bored. The reaction was predictable. Kyaaa. A new student, and he's so hot. Look at his eyes. Is he a model? He looks like a delinquent, but a gorgeous one. Naruto just walked, ignoring the stares, his hands shoved in the pockets of the black Kuo Academy blazer. It was weird, but he wasn't the only one causing a stir. Walking on either side of him were his attachments. On his right, her hand clutching the sleeve of his blazer like a lifeline, was Asuya Argento. Now in a Kuo girl's uniform, she looked impossibly sweet, shy, and completely terrified, her green eyes darting around. On his left, matching his pace with a silent, feline grace, was Kaneko Tuju. The student body was losing its mind. Wait, is he with Kaneko-chan? And Asia-chan, the new, beautiful transfer student. He's walking with 2 of the Kuo idols. Issei Hyodo, walking 5 feet behind them with Kiba, was practically vibrating with jealous rage. This is garbage, Issei hissed, his voice a pathetic whine. Total, complete crap. How does he do that? He's not even trying. He just frowns and they flock to him. I'm supposed to be the harem king. I'm the one with the Longinus. Kiba just sighed, a polite, weary smile on his face. Issei, maybe you should try, not mentioning the harem king thing. Or talking about their chests. But their chests are the key to their hearts. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works, Issei. Quote, they were approaching the main gate when they saw them. 2 girls, standing in the middle of the path as if they owned it. They, too, wore uniforms, but not from Kuo. They were different. The first was tall, with short, striking blue hair and a no-nonsense expression. A massive sword, wrapped in a white cloth, was strapped to her back. The second had long, auburn-brown hair in twintails, and a bright, almost too cheerful smile. She carried a similar, though smaller, wrapped blade. Devils of Kuo Academy, the blue-haired girl said, her voice loud, clear, and cold. It carried, and students began to stop and stare. We are here on behalf of the church. Issei froze. Church. Wait. Like Asia's old bosses. The blue-haired girl's eyes immediately snapped to Asia. Her gaze was like ice. Asuya Argento, the witch of the twilight healing. You have fallen. To consort with devils for protection, you are a disgrace to the cloth. Disgusting. Asia cried out, a small, wounded sound, and physically hid behind Naruto's back. That was the trigger. Naruto, who had been content to just watch, stepped forward, placing himself directly between the sword-wielding girl and Asia. Hey, he said, his voice flat. That's enough. Don't talk to her like that. The moment he moved, the entire atmosphere changed. The blue-haired girl, Zenobia, stumbled back a step, her hand flying to the hilt of her sword. The girl with twintails, Irina, gasped, her cheerful smile vanishing, replaced by a look of pure, terrified awe. What is this? Zenobia breathed, her eyes wide, staring at Naruto. This pressure, it's holy. It's like standing in the heart of heaven. No, It's more. It's stronger than any bishop. It's beautiful, Irina whispered, her hands clasped to her chest. It feels like pure, unfiltered sunlight. Are you an angel? They were sensing his senjutsu. The dormant, natural energy of the world that he carried with him. To their senses, trained to see only holy and demonic, this pure, balanced, life energy registered as the ultimate, holy. He's not an angel, Kiba said, stepping up, his hand on his own sword hilt. Then what is he? Zenobia demanded, drawing her blade. The cloth fell away, revealing a massive, brutally efficient greatsword that hummed with a power that made the air crackle. A devil, hiding his scent with a holy aura. In the name of God, I command you to explain yourself. Put that away, Naruto said, his gaze flat and unimpressed. You're at a school, you're scaring people, quote. Kiba, however, had frozen. His gaze was locked on Zenobia's sword, his face pale, his polite mask gone, replaced by a cold, dark, suffocating rage. That sword, Kiba whispered, his voice trembling. It's an Excalibur. This is Excalibur destruction, Zenobia said, her voice full of righteous pride. My partner, Irina, carries Excalibur mimic. We are here to retrieve the 3 stolen Excaliburs, which are now in the hands of the fallen angel, Kokobile. Just then, Rias and Akino arrived, their expressions grim. This is Grimoire territory, Rias said, her voice hard. The church has no jurisdiction here, Excalibur wielder. Our mission is simple, Zenobia said, ignoring Rias, her eyes still on Kiba's pained expression. We find the swords, we retrieve them, and we destroy any devil who gets in our way. That was the second trigger. Kiba snapped. You, he hissed, a dark, demonic aura beginning to bleed off him. You, servant of the holy swords, you dare. Come here, with that. Kiba, Rias yelled. Not here, stand down. But Kiba was gone. His mind was somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold and full of screams. I will destroy every last one. Quote. He blurred, a burst of demonic speed that left an afterimage, his own sword drawn and aimed right at Zenobia's heart. I'll kill you. Zenobia, a master-class warrior, was unfazed. A devil dares. Quote. She met his charge. Clang. The sound was deafening. A shockwave erupted from the impact, shattering the windows of the nearest classroom. Kiba was fast, a whirlwind of strikes. But Zenobia was power. Her Excalibur destruction didn't just parry, it obliterated the ground where Kiba's sword had been, forcing him to disengage, his speed his only defense. Zenobia, I'll help, Irina shouted, drawing her own blade. Akino's hands crackled with holy lightning. Rias's aura of destruction began to form. It was about to become a full-scale war, right at the school gate. I said, enough. Naruto's voice was not loud, but it cut through the sound of clashing steel, the crackle of lightning, and the hum of demonic power. He was there. He was standing between Kiba and Zenobia, who were frozen mid-clash. His right hand was closed, impossibly, around the blade of Kiba's demonic sword, stopping it cold. The demonic metal screamed in protest. His left hand, his bare left hand, was clamped around the blade of Excalibur destruction. Time stopped. The gathered students, Rias, Akino, Irina, Kiba, Issei, everyone, stared. Zenobia's brain stalled. It could not compute what it was seeing. Her holy sword, a relic of God, a weapon that unmade devils on contact and could cleave a mountain, was being held by a bare hand. A wisp of white smoke, smelling of seared flesh and ozone, rose from Naruto's palm. He didn't even flinch. His skin, forged by war and infused with Kurama's power, was tougher than steel. I said, Naruto repeated, his voice a low, terrifying calm. Enough. Blasphemer. Zenobia roared, a sound of pure, dogmatic outrage. She tried to rip her sword free. It didn't budge. It was as if she were trying to pull her sword from the bedrock of the planet. Let go, she snarled, channeling all her holy power into the blade, making it glow with a white-hot light. You first. Naruto squeezed. A sound, not of metal, but of 1,000-year-old crystal being struck by a hammer, echoed across the schoolyard. CRA-CK. It was not a large crack. It was a tiny, horrifying, spider-webbing fracture, right where his fingers were clamped. Excalibur destruction was damaged. Zenobia screamed. It was not a war cry. It was a sound of pure, soul-deep horror. She let go of the hilt as if it were a viper, stumbling back, her hands to her mouth. Naruto didn't release Kiba. He just turned his head, his blue eyes meeting Kiba's rage-filled ones. "Kiba," he said, his voice quiet. "Calm down. You're not thinking. You're just angry. It's making you slow. It's making you stupid." He pushed Kiba. His rage utterly broken by the sheer, casual dominance of the display, was shoved back, stumbling over his own feet. Naruto then looked at the massive greatsword, still held in his left hand. With a sound of pure disgust, he flicked it. The 6-foot-long, 100-pound holy sword was sent spinning through the air like a discarded shuriken. It crossed the 30 yards to the school gymnasium and slammed into the concrete wall, embedding itself, hilt deep, with a sound like a thunderclap. Thwom. Silence. Absolute, stunned, ringing silence. Irina was frozen, her mouth open, her own Excalibur half-drawn. Rias and Akeno had lowered their hands, their own prepared attacks forgotten. Issei just looked like his brain had melted and was leaking out of his ears. Zenobia was trembling, her gaze fixed on her defiled sword, now a monument in the side of the gym. You, cracked, she whispered, her voice shaking with a fury and confusion so deep it was almost grief. You touched a holy relic. You broke it with your hand. It's a sword, Naruto said, his voice flat. He looked at his palm. The holy fire burn was already healing, new skin visibly sealing over the wound. It's a tool, a rock, a stick. It's not special. You were using it to threaten my friends. So I took it away. Friends. Zenobia shrieked, her control snapping. Those are devils. That is a fallen witch. And you hold the power of a seraph, and you side with them. You are a blasphemer, a heretic of the highest order. I'm not on their side, Naruto said, his voice cutting. I'm on his side, he pointed, not at Rias, but at Kiba. I'm on her side, he gestured to Asia. I'm on the side of the people who are hurting. And you, he looked Zenobia dead in the eyes, are just a bully. A loud, brainwashed bully, hiding behind a mission, so you don't have to think. You don't care about God. You just care about being right. Quote, this ideological dissection hit Zenobia harder than any physical blow. Her black and white, dogmatic world was shattering. She had no answer. Kiba was staring at Naruto. His anger gone, replaced by a profound, shaking awe. Naruto turned, his anger fading, and put a hand on Kiba's shoulder. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. You're angry. I get it. That sword, those holy swords, they're connected to something bad. Something that happened to your friends. Right. Kiba, stunned by the sudden, accurate empathy, could only nod, his eyes filling with tears. Okay. Naruto nodded, his voice all business. Then we'll deal with it. After school, we'll find this Valpier guy you're thinking about. And we'll get your answers. He turned, walking Kiba toward the school building, his hand still on his shoulder. Come on. You look like you need to sit down. Asia and Kaneko, without a word, without a moment's hesitation, fell into step right behind him. The four of them, a strange, broken, and impossibly powerful little group, just walked away. They left Rias, Akeno, and a goggle-eyed Issei standing in the shattered courtyard with the two dumbfounded, defeated, and ideologically broken warriors of the church. So, Issei finally said, breaking the silence, his voice cracking. Just to be clear, does his mean he's also the boss of the church now? I'm just trying to keep track. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6. The War Starter. The Occult Research Club building was, for the first time since Naruto's arrival, a place of quiet, simmering tension. The gaping hole in the north wall had been magically, if temporarily, sealed by a massive grimoire crest, but the chill of the outside world still seeped in. It was late afternoon, the final bell having rung an hour ago, and the clubroom had become a reluctant war council. They were all there, Rias, Akeno, and a very subdued Issei. Kiba, who was the center of the room's attention. His face pale and set. Kaneko and Asia, sitting together on the sofa, a silent, supportive unit. And in the corner, sitting in two of the club's chairs as if they were prisoners in the dock, were Zenobia and Irina. It was called the Holy Sword Project, Kiba said, his voice quiet, but shaking with a rage that had been buried for years. He was staring at the floor as he spoke. I wasn't born Kiba Yuto. I was just a test subject. An orphan, taken in by the church. They told us we were blessed. That we were chosen by God. His hand clenched so hard his knuckles were white. They were trying to create artificial wielders of holy swords. They infused us with something. We were a group. A family. We were all just children. Irina was crying, her hands over her mouth. Zenobia was rigid, her face a mask of stone, but her eyes were flickering, her entire worldview under assault. The experiments, they were flawed, Kiba continued, his voice cracking. The rejection rate was high. One by one, my friends, they died. They would crystallize, or just stop screaming. We all heard it. Issei looked sick. Dude, that's messed up. When the project was deemed a failure, Kiba said, his voice now flat, dead, they decided to clean up the evidence. To purge the project. They gassed us. All of us. I only survived because one of my friends, he hid me. He pushed me, telling me to live for all of them. He looked up, and his eyes, his kind, polite, night eyes, were filled with a pure, undiluted poison. He wasn't looking at Zenobia. He was looking through her. I ran until I collapsed. I was dying, and Rias found me. She saved me. She gave me a new name. A new life. But I never forgot. The man who ran the project, the one who gave the order to purge us, his name was Valpier Galilei. And now, he's here. In this town, working with the fallen. The room was silent. Zenobia finally spoke, her voice strained. Valpier Galilei. He is a legend in the church. A master of research and alchemy. He was excommunicated, yes, but for this. It cannot be. It is, a new voice said. Naruto had been standing by the window, his back to the room, just listening. He turned, and his face was cold. He was there. I'm sensing him now. Him, and the swords, and the boss. Kokobile, Rias breathed, her face going pale. Who? Issei asked. A Kadri class fallen angel, Akano said, her playful smile gone, replaced by a grim, serious expression. A leader of the Grigori. He's one of the ones who survived the Great War. He's a war starter. He loves conflict. If he's here, he's not just here for the swords. He's here to set the world on fire. As if summoned by her words, the very air in the room screamed. It was not a sound. It was a pressure. A wave of raw, dark, suffocating power washed over the entire city. So potent that the Grimoire seal on the wall cracked and shattered. Simultaneously, the sky outside the window, which had been a clear twilight blue, turned a deep, sickly, churning purple. A massive barrier, miles wide, had just encased the entire Kuo Academy campus. He's here, Rias stammered, her knees buckling. The power. It was on a completely different level from Riser. It was Sirzek's level. Boom. A massive explosion tore the athletic field in half. A pillar of black and purple fire erupted into the sky. Everyone, move, Rias commanded, her king persona snapping into place. The entire group, Rias, Akano, Kiba, Kaneko, Issei, Asia, and even a stunned Zenobia and Irina, burst from the ruined building. Naruto was right behind them. They skidded to a halt on the edge of a newly formed crater. In the center of the field, sitting on an ornate, jagged throne that seemed to be made of pure shadow, was a man. He had 10 massive, black feathered wings. His silver hair was long and wild, and his eyes were crimson, filled with a bottomless, ancient boredom. This was Kokobile. Well, he drawled, his voice echoing across the campus. Laced with an amusement that held no humor. Rias Grimoire, Sirzek's little sister, and, oh, this is interesting. 2 of the church's little lapdogs. And, Ossia Argento. The Fallen Witch. What a pathetic, little, mixed-up gathering. Kokobile. Rias shouted, her crimson aura of destruction flaring. This is Grimoire territory. By the treaty, you have no right. Treaty. Kokobile roared, and the sheer sound sent a shockwave that knocked Issei and Asia off their feet. Don't speak to me of that pathetic, cowardly piece of parchment. I am bored, little Grimoire. Bored of this peace. It has gone on for far too long. I am here to restart the war. He snapped his fingers. The ground tore open, and three massive, snarling, three-headed Cerberus hounds, their eyes glowing with hellfire, leapt out. Keep my pets company, Kokobile yawned. I am waiting for the real players. We are not your playthings. Kiba yelled, his rage at Valpier now focused. He blurred forward, his demonic speed a black streak. Kaneko, Akeno, now, Kiba, Akeno, and Kaneko, the Grimoire trio, attacked as one. Kiba was a whirlwind of sword strikes, Kaneko a tiny, white-haired comet of pure, physical power. And Akeno, she flew, her hands crackling with holy lightning. They hit the Cerberus hounds, and the battle was joined. It was chaos, explosions of lightning, the sound of Kaneko's fists cracking demonic bone, the flash of Kiba's sword. Irina, Zenobia shouted, her crisis of faith momentarily forgotten in the heat of battle. For God, we will show these devils. She lunged, not at the hounds, but at Kokobile. Her Excalibur destruction, still cracked but functional, was aimed at his throat. Irina was right behind her, her Excalibur mimic shifting into the form of a whip. Righteous, arrogant children, Kokobile sighed. He didn't move, he just raised an eyebrow. A wall of pure, dark light erupted from him. Zenobia and Irina slammed into it as if it were a mountain of solid steel. The impact sent them flying backward, their holy swords ripped from their grasp, clattering to the ground. They landed in a heap, broken and gasping. So weak, Kokobile mused. And you fight for him. You fight for a corpse. Zenobia, clutching her broken ribs, looked up. What did you say? Kokobile's grin was a wide, cruel, devastating thing. Oh, did Azazel not tell you? Did Michael not have the guts to admit it? Ha, this is rich. He stood from his throne, spreading his 10 wings, his power suffocating the entire campus. The biblical god, Kokobile announced, his voice a gleeful, booming proclamation, is dead. He died in the Great War, killed by the original Maus, who also died. This peace, you're all clinging to. This faith, you're fighting for. It's all a lie. You are praying to an empty throne. The words, they were an atom bomb. Issei, Rias, Kiba, they were stunned. This was a secret of the highest order. But for Zenobia and Irina, it was the end of the world. No, Irina whispered, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. No. That's a lie. A devil's lie. Zenobia was silent. Her face was blank. The cracks in her world, the ones Naruto had started, had just shattered. The foundation of her entire life, her purpose, her being, was gone. She wasn't a warrior. She was a fool. No. She whispered, and it was a sound of a soul dying. It can't be. Kokobile laughed, a high, piercing sound of pure, sadistic joy. Yes, that's the look of true despair. This is far more entertaining than. Hey, asshole. Kokobile stopped. He turned. Issei Hyodo was standing there, his legs shaking, his face a mask of terror. But he was standing. He was looking at Asia, who was crying. He was looking at Irina, who was broken. He was looking at Rias, who was pale with shock. You can't just say stuff like that. Issei shouted, his voice cracking. You made them cry. That's unforgivable. Kokobile just stared at him. And, you are. I am Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor. And the future Harem King. A glove of crimson, draconic metal, with a green jewel, suddenly materialized on Issei's left arm. A deep, mechanical voice echoed from it. Boost. Issei's eyes went wide. It worked. It's here. My sacred gear. Yes. Okay. Asshole. Now, you're really gonna get it. You're gonna pay for hurting all these beautiful girls. Prepare to face my ultimate attack. Go. Dress. Break. Quote. He thrust his hand forward, a small, pathetic green light shooting out, aimed not at Kokobile, but at Akeno. The light hit her, and did absolutely nothing. Her uniform remained perfectly intact. Silence. The Cerberus hounds stopped fighting. Kiba and Kaneko paused. Kokobile just stared. His expression of sadistic joy had been replaced by one of pure, bottomless, baffled disgust. A pervert, Kokobile whispered, his voice trembling with a new, insulting kind of rage. Azazel, he gave the boosted gear, the Longinus that could kill gods, to a pervert. He looked at Issei. You, he said, his voice flat, are an insult, an abomination. Your very existence offends me. I'm going to erase you. He raised one finger. A spear of pure, black and white, antimatter light, 1,000 times more potent than Rainer's, formed above him. It was aimed directly at Issei. Issei, Rias screamed, lunging for him, her power of destruction forming, but she was too slow, too far. Issei was paralyzed, his perverted grin frozen in terror. He was about to be unmade. The spear shot forward. Clang. It was not a boom. It was not an explosion. It was a simple, final, metallic clang. The spear of pure, god-killing energy had been caught. Everyone froze. Naruto was standing in front of Issei. His hand, his bare hand, was wrapped around the tip of Kokobile's spear of light. He was in sage mode. The golden-orange aura was back, blazing like a sun, pushing back the purple, oppressive darkness of the barrier. His eyes were the golden, cross-hatched pupils of the sage. He looked divine. He looked, in that one, perfect, impossible moment, more holy than any angel Xenovia had ever dreamed of. You, Naruto said, his voice the calm, layered echo of the sage. He looked over his shoulder at Issei. You are the loudest, stupidest person I have ever met. Go, sit with Asia, and be quiet. He flicked his wrist. The spear of light, a weapon of Kadri-class power, was snapped in half and flung aside, where it harmlessly dissolved. You, Kokobile whispered, his boredom gone, replaced by a sharp, sudden, manic interest. You are not a devil. You are not holy. I can't smell you. But that power, that is what broke Excalibur. That is what Azazel has been hiding. So, you're the boss, Naruto said, ignoring him, taking a step forward. The one who sent Rainer. The one who's working with Valpier. The one who's boring. Boring. Kokobile roared, his pride stung. I am. You're a distraction. Naruto's tone was so final, so dismissive. It was more insulting than anything Issei could have ever said. While you're down here, throwing a tantrum like a spoiled child, a real threat is watching. As he spoke, Naruto's sage mode flared. He reached deep, pulling on the natural energy of the world, and pulling on the volcano inside him. Now, Kit, Kurama roared, let's show this bird what real power looks like. Naruto felt it, the moment his power flared to its true height. The tear in the sky, the wound he had created, throbbed. The cold, the void, the Nile, it tasted him. A trillion-mile-long tongue of pure nothing licked at his energy. And he felt it, a cold, ancient hunger that had nothing to do with this pretend war. Yes, Kokobile hissed, his eyes wide, feeling the dimensional tremor but not understanding it. Yes, that's the power. Show it to me. Show me the power that has the void itself drooling. Show me your war. He spread all 10 wings, and 100 spears of light formed. A rain of death that he launched all at once. Fine, Naruto said. You want a war. You're a one-man army. So am I. He clapped his hands. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Poof. In an instant, the entire battlefield was filled. 1,000 golden orange, blazing copies of Naruto Uzumaki appeared. You, the real Naruto said, pointing at the 3 Cerberus hounds, deal with the pets. Right, boss. 500 clones roared. They descended on the Cerberus hounds, and what had been a battle for the Grimoire peerage, became a slaughter. A wave of Rasengans impacted the hounds, and they were vaporized in a symphony of blue, swirling light. Kokobeel's 100 spears were met by 100 clones, who formed a wall, tanking the hits and vanishing in puffs of smoke. In the space of 5 seconds, Kokobeel's entire army was gone. He was alone. What is this, sorcery? He stammered, his arrogance finally cracking, revealing the fear beneath. This, Naruto said, landing on the shadow throne Kokobeel had abandoned, is boring. He held up his hand. A small, black pinprick of nothing appeared. It was a Biju Dama, a tailed beast bomb, a sphere of pure, positive and negative chakra, compressed. But it was wrong. It was infused with senjutsu. It was a golden, blazing, perfect sphere of life and destruction, all at once. No, Kokobeel whispered, his eyes wide. He knew, that if that thing hit him, he would not just die. He would be erased. Wait, Kokobeel shrieked, his pride gone. Wait, we can talk. A truce. I'll go. I'll leave. Azazel, Searsex, you talk too much, Naruto said. He was gone. He was in front of Kokobeel. The Biju bomb was gone. His hand was empty. What? Naruto shoved his empty hand into Kokobeel's chest. It wasn't an attack. It was a seal. A black, swirling, Uzumaki spiral appeared on Kokobeel's chest, right where Naruto's hand was. Gogyo Fuin, 5 elements seal, Naruto whispered. Kokobeel's eyes went wide. His power, his 10 wings, his fallen energy, his magic, it all just stopped. It was like a tap had been turned off. He tried to summon a light spear, and nothing happened. He tried to fly, and he couldn't. His 10 massive, beautiful wings were just meat. They were heavy. He fell to his knees, his wings dragging in the dirt. He was powerless. What did you do to me? He shrieked, his voice now high, thin, human. I unplugged you, Naruto said, using his own word from the Riser fight. He looked at Kokobeel, no longer a god of war, but just a pathetic, broken man with too many wings. Your power, it's still in there. But you can't touch it. You can't use it. You're just you. The purple barrier over the school flickered, sputtered, and died. The normal, night sky returned. Silence. Rias, Akano, Kiba, Kaneko, Issei, Asia, Xenovia, Irina, they were all staring. Naruto had just ended a cadre class. War starter. Without killing him. He had taken his power. He had neutered him. It was terrifying. It was absolute. It was a display of control so far beyond their comprehension. It was divine. Akano Himahima was breathing hard. Her face was flushed. Her eyes were locked on Naruto's golden, blazing form. This was power. Not Rias's destruction. Not Kokobeel's light. But balance. A perfect, terrible, beautiful balance of light, sage mode, and dark Kurama in one single, dominant being. She was utterly, hopelessly captivated. Well, shit. A new voice. A whoosh of wings. Azazel, the governor of the fallen angels, landed softly on the grass, his 12 wings spread wide. He was whistling a casual, impressed tune as he looked at his powerless, seething general. Damn, kid, Azazel said, walking over and nudging Kokobeel with his foot. You really don't know how to do things by half, do you? He looked up at Naruto, his roguish grin gone, replaced by a look of sharp, serious assessment. You just sealed a cadre class leader. You have no idea the paperwork you just created. Naruto's sage mode faded. The golden aura vanished. He was just a kid in a tracksuit again. He looked up, past Azazel, past the school, at the sky. At the invisible tear that only he could see. He's not the problem, Naruto said, his voice tired. The war he wanted, it's a joke. The real war is that. And it's coming. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7. The Fourth Faction. The air on the ruined battlefield was thick with the smell of ozone, brimstone, and the wet, coppery tang of power. Kokobeel, the war starter, was a crumpled, seething heap of useless wings and human-level fury. His seal, the black Uzumaki spiral, was a stark brand on his chest. Azazel was the first to move, whistling a low, impressed tune. Well, this is a mess. A brilliant mess, but a mess nonetheless. He sauntered over to his former general. Kokabile, you magnificent idiot, you just had to poke the bear, didn't you? Or, in this case, the nine-tailed sage. Kokabile just spat at his feet. A new flash of crimson light, and Sears's Lucifer, flanked by Graphia, appeared. His face was not calm. He looked at the sealed Kokabile, at the cracked Excalibur still embedded in the gymnasium wall, at the two broken church warriors, and finally, at Naruto. The Mao's aura was a heavy, suffocating blanket of pure, political dread. This wasn't Riser. This wasn't Diodora. This was a cadre class leader, sealed in his sister's territory by an unknown third party. This was an act of war. Naruto-kun, Sears's said, his voice dangerously quiet. You have complicated matters beyond all reckoning. He was going to kill Issei, Naruto said, his voice flat. He was still looking at the sky, at the invisible tier. He was a distraction. I stopped him. You're welcome. The sheer, unadulterated simplicity of it was what broke the tension. Azazel burst out laughing. He says, you're welcome. Sis-chan, I like this kid. He's got more guts than your entire government. Azazel, this is not a joke. Sears snapped. He just neutered one of your governors. This is a declaration of war against the Grigori. Is it? Azazel countered, his roguish smile vanishing, replaced by a cold, sharp intelligence. Or, is it pest control? Kokabile broke the treaty. He attacked your territory. He revealed the God is dead secret, just for a laugh. He tried to start a new great war. I'd say, this kid just saved us all a mountain of paperwork. And lives. He looked at Naruto. As the current Governor General of the Grigori, I say, no harm, no foul. In fact, I'd call it a favor. Sears was stunned. Azazel was siding with Naruto. He was letting this go. He's right. You know, Naruto said, finally looking at them. The three of you, devils, fallen, angels, you're all children, pointing sticks at each other, arguing over who broke whose toys. Now, see here, Sears started. While you're doing that, Naruto cut him off, his voice dropping, the real monster is at the door. Nile, the Void Weaver, it felt me, it tasted my power, it's learning, and it's hungry. A new, radiant light descended. It was not the crackling, artificial light of the fallen, nor the crimson energy of the devils. This was pure. It was the feeling of a bright, sad, winter morning. A man with 12 brilliant white wings and long, golden hair stood before them. His face was impossibly beautiful, but etched with a profound, thousand-year sorrow. This was Michael, the Seraph, acting leader of heaven. He speaks the truth, Michael said, his voice a soft, melodic chord that seemed to hang in the air. We have felt it too. A hole in the divine. A coldness. We thought it was a new machination of the fallen. But it is other. He looked at Kokabile, then at Zenobia and Irina, who were staring at him, their faces a mask of broken faith. My children. He bowed his head. What Kokabile said. It is the great, terrible secret of heaven. God is gone. We are all that is left. This, from Michael himself, was the final blow. Irina let out a wail. Her faith utterly shattered. Zenobia just shut her eyes, her entire world collapsing. Sears, Azazel, and Michael. The three great leaders, all gathered on a high school athletic field. Over the body of a defeated warmonger. This changes everything, Sears said, his voice grim. The summit. It must be now. We cannot wait. Agreed, Azazel said, kicking the sealed Kokabile. Graphia, be a dear and put this in storage, will you? The Grigori will send for him later. A long later. Graphia, with a look of distaste, encased Kokabile in a block of ice and teleported him away. Michael looked at Naruto, his sad, ancient eyes full of a strange, new light. You, who carry the light of life, who are not of our world, you must be there. You are the very reason for this summit. An hour later, they were in the gymnasium. The basketball hoops had been magically retracted, the floor polished to a mirror shine. In the center, a large, circular, obsidian table had been summoned. 3 great banners hung from the rafters: the Grimoire crest, the Grigori's symbol, and the cross of heaven. It was not just the leaders. Circex, Azazel, and Michael sat at the table. Behind them, in silent, imposing rows, were their retinues. Circex had Graphia and several high-ranking devil nobles, their faces grim and arrogant. Azazel had a few tough-looking, trench-coated fallen with him. Michael was flanked by 2 powerful-looking seraphs, Uriel and Gabriel, their faces stoic and radiant. Rias and her peerage were there, standing near her brother. Issei, for once, was quiet, his eyes wide, clutching his boosted gear, which he still hadn't figured out how to turn off. And then, there was the other delegation. Naruto Uzumaki. He hadn't been given a chair. He was just standing. And behind him, in a bizarre, unspoken, and completely unofficial show of solidarity, stood his group. Kaneko, her arms crossed, her face a mask of tiny, feline defiance. Asia Argento, trembling, but refusing to leave his side. And, most shockingly, Zenobia. Her faith was gone. Her sword was a monument outside. She was adrift, and the only anchor in the room, the only thing that had proven real, was the man who had broken her world. She was standing behind him, her expression lost. The political tension was a knife edge. Circex, this is an outrage. A hawk-faced devil noble, Lord Furnius, snapped, pointing a clawed finger at Naruto. You would allow this human, to stand in on the Tri-Faction Summit. This creature, who has assaulted 2 pillar heirs and sealed a cadre class. He is a terrorist. He is a blasphemer. The seraph Uriel countered, his voice like a trumpet. He wields a parody of holy power, yet consorts with devils. He broke a holy sword. He is an abomination. He's a resource, Azazel said, leaning back in his chair, feet on the table. And a damn interesting one. And he's my guest. So, pipe down, Uriel, before you pop a halo. This is not a joke, Azazel. Circex said, his voice commanding. Lord Furnius, Uriel-sama, your concerns are noted. But the situation has evolved. Naruto-kun is here because you're all scared of me. Naruto said. The room went dead silent. He hadn't shouted. He'd just spoken. He walked forward, past the guards, past the leaders, and stood in the center of the room, looking at the 3 great banners. You're not here to talk about peace, he said, his voice cutting through the sanctimonious posturing. You're here because I showed up. Because I broke your little game. Because I can end your strongest, and you don't know what I am. And you're scared. He looked at Lord Furnius. I assaulted Riser. He grabbed Rias. He wouldn't let go, so I made him. He looked at the unnamed, furious representative of the Astaroth clan. I mutilated Diodora. He used a child as a human shield. So I took his leg. He looked at Uriel. I broke your stick. It was being used to bully my friends. So I took it away. He turned, his back to them, and faced the 3 leaders. I don't care about your ancient history, he said, his voice low, but it carried to every corner of the silent gym. I don't care about your great war, or your dead god, or your political alliances. I live in Kuo now. The people there, Rias, Issei, Kiba, Kaneko, Asia, they are mine to protect. So, end your stupid war. Stop the bickering. Because a real war is coming. A real monster is at the door. And if you'd rather fight me, then face it. He paused, and let a wisp of golden, sage mode chakra leak out. It wasn't an attack. It was a promise. The entire gymnasium groaned under the sudden, physical pressure of the planet's life force. I will end you, too. The arrogance. The audacity. The sheer, unmitigated gall. You dare. Lord Furnius roared, lunging to his feet, a black aura of power forming. You, child, threaten the Maous. He is not threatening, Michael said, his sad eyes fixed on Naruto. He is stating a fact. He's right, Azazel said, suddenly serious, his feet hitting the floor. While we're all sitting here, posturing, it is watching. This Nile, this Void Weaver, it's here. Quote, what do you mean, here? Circex demanded, his gaze snapping to Azazel. I mean, Azazel said, his eyes darting to the darkest corner of the gymnasium, right there. It happened in an instant. It wasn't an explosion. It was a hush. The magical lights in the gymnasium flickered. The air grew cold. A shadow in the corner, under the bleachers, seemed to thicken. It detached from the wall. It was not a creature. It was a hole in the shape of a man, but wrong. It was asymmetrical, its limbs twitching, its skin like an oily, shifting film of darkness. It had no face. It just had a swirling, light-sucking vortex where a head should be. A void puppet. Azazel breathed, his face pale. It's a probe. Insolent creature. Lord Furnius, still enraged, acted first. He hurled a massive, black and purple blast of demonic energy at the thing. Die. The blast hit the creature. And vanished. The void puppet twitched. It flexed. And it grew. The black, oily skin swelled, its form becoming more solid. It had eaten the attack. It's feeding. Rias yelled. By the Father. Uriel roared. He raised his hand, and a pillar of pure, white-hot, holy light slammed down on the creature. Be purified. The light didn't burn it. It siphoned. The creature inhaled the holy energy, its form swelling again, a low, bass hum vibrating from its core. It was stronger. It's absorbing all power. Kiba shouted. Akeno. Rias. On it. Rias and Akeno combined their attacks. A torrent of holy lightning and power of Ruction, the ultimate anti-devil and anti-matter energies, hit the creature in a devastating, roaring barrage. The creature vibrated in ecstasy. It drank the energy. It was now 10 feet tall, its form rippling with stolen power. This is impossible, Searsex said, his face ashen. Their entire arsenal, holy, demonic, lightning, it was all food. My turn, Issei yelled, his fear overridden by a desperate need to be useful. He'd been building power this whole time. Boost, 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 boost. His gauntlet was glowing, the green jewel blazing. He thrust his arm out. Dragon shot. A massive, crimson-red beam of pure, draconic power blasted across the gym. It was, by far, the strongest attack yet. The void puppet caught it. It opened its maw, and the entire dragon shot was sucked inside. The creature shuddered, its form solidifying, its shadow flesh hardening into something like chitin. And the green jewel on Issei's gauntlet flickered and dimmed. It ate it. Issei shrieked. It ate my boost. The creature, now a solidified, 12-foot-tall monster of chitinous shadow, turned its maw toward the faction leaders. The terror in the room was no longer political. It was primal. Everyone, run, Searsex yelled, preparing a desperate, massive blast of his own destruction power, even knowing it would only feed it. No, Naruto stepped in front of him. He was calm. Naruto-kun, no, Rias screamed. It will eat your power, too. My power, Naruto said, closing his eyes, is not like yours. He opened them. They were gold, the cross-hatch pupils of the sage. The golden-orange aura of Senjutsu blazed to life, not with the heat of magic, but with the warmth of life. The creature hesitated. It flinched. The one-way flow of energy stopped. It sensed this life. And it did not like it. It's afraid, Michael whispered, his eyes wide with awe. You eat magic, Naruto said, his voice the layered echo of the sage. You eat energy. But this is not for you. He raised his hand. A shrieking, high-pitched wail filled the room, like 1,000 birds. A spinning, four-pointed, white-hot shuriken of pure wind spun to life in his hand. But it was infused with the golden, blazing power of Senjutsu. Futon. Resenshuriken. Don't. Lord Furnius screamed. You'll only make it stronger, you fool. Naruto threw it. The Resenshuriken blasted across the gym. It was not a beam. It was a physical thing. The void puppet raised its arm to absorb it. The moment the Senjutsu infused blade touched the creature's skin, it didn't absorb. It tore. A high-pitched, digital scream ripped through the air. The creature's flesh dissolved on contact. The natural energy, the pure life force, was poison to its void nature. It was anathema. The creature shrieked, a sound of pure agony, as the Resenshuriken plunged into its chest. And then, it detonated. It was not a fire and brimstone explosion. It was an implosion of a billion, microscopic, senjutsu-infused wind needles. They didn't just cut. They disintegrated the creature's very structure on a cellular level. The void puppet convulsed. It shattered, not into pieces, but into data. It dissolved into a cloud of black, oily dust, which was then obliterated by the storm of wind. In 3 seconds, it was gone. The high-pitched shriek of the jutsu faded, leaving only a ringing, deafening silence. Naruto's sage mode faded. He stood there, breathing a little hard, his hands in his pockets. He looked back at the entire leadership of the tri-faction world, who were staring at him. Their faces a mask of pure, unadulterated, terrified awe. The arrogant nobles were trembling, their faces ashen. "See," Naruto said, his voice flat. "It's learning." That was a probe. It was testing us, testing our power. Now, it knows. It knows what we can do. And it knows that our power is just food. He looked directly at Searsex, Michael, and Azazel. And it knows that I'm the only one who can hurt it. The political argument was over. The posturing was finished. The debate was done. Searsex Lucifer, the great Mao, stood. He didn't look at his nobles. He looked at Naruto. The political objections are withdrawn. Azazel just smiled. A grim, sharp, wolfish smile. "Well, kid, looks like you win." Michael was the last to stand. He bowed. His 12 white wings spread in a gesture of surrender, of fealty. "Uzumaki Naruto," the seraph said, his voice echoing with a sorrowful, terrible finality. "You are not a guest. You are not an asset. You are no longer just an unknown. You are the fourth faction." Chapter 7 End. Chapter 8. The Harem King's Abdication. The tension in the Occult Research Club building had been a low, toxic hum for 3 days. The summit had changed everything. The flimsy, torn-up seal on the north wall was a constant reminder of the real war, the one against the void. The Nile threat was no longer a philosophical problem. It was a cold, hard, terrifying reality. And in this new reality, the old hierarchy had been pulverized. Rias Grimori, the king, was now a student. She, Akeno, and Kiba spent their time poring over ancient Grimori and Grigori texts, desperately trying to find any mention of Nile, void entities, or senjutsu. They were researching it was clear to everyone they were scared. And Issei Hyodo was breaking. He had the Red Dragon Emperor, a Longinus, the power that could kill gods. And he was, without a shadow of a doubt, the most useless, insignificant person in the room. He'd spent the last 3 days in the corner, hissing boost under his breath, trying to build his power, but for what? To what end? His dress break was a joke. His dragon shot was food for the enemy. He was a pervert with a god-tier weapon he couldn't use, in a war that had no need for him. But the real poison, the real humiliation, was them. The girls. His harem. They didn't just respect Naruto. They orbited him. Naruto was sitting on the main sofa, his eyes closed, in a light sage meditation, a practice he'd started to try and feel the tears in the world. And they were all around him. Kaneko was curled up at his feet, not even on the sofa, just there, on the floor by his legs, reading a book, as comfortable as a housecat by a fire. Asia was sitting on the coffee table opposite him, her hands clasped, watching him with a look of pure, beatific devotion, as if just being in his presence was a blessing. Akeno, who used to serve Rias tea first, had just placed a steaming cup by Naruto's hand, her era smile now holding a dark, hypnotic fascination that was reserved only for him. Rias, his king, was sitting at her desk, but she wasn't working. She was watching him, her expression a complex, terrifying storm of admiration, reliance, and something softer. And Zenobia, the former church warrior, her faith in tatters, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharpening a new, standard-issue demonic sword Kiba had given her. She was his. There was no other word for it. He was her new faith, her new anchor. She would, Issei knew with a sickening lurch, die on his order. This is garbage. The words, a choked, furious whine, ripped through the quiet study hall atmosphere. Everyone looked up. Issei Hyodo was on his feet, his left arm blazing with the crimson power of the boosted gear. His face was blotchy, his eyes wild with a desperation that was almost pathetic. This is my peerage. This is my king. I'm the Red Dragon Emperor. I'm the one who's supposed to be. He couldn't even say it. The Harem King title sounded like a child's fantasy in this new, grim world. Naruto opened his eyes. The gold of Sage Mode faded, leaving only his clear, tired blue. He looked at Issei, his expression unreadable. What's wrong, Issei? What's wrong? Issei shrieked, his voice cracking. What's wrong is you just show up. You break everything. You take everything. Riser, Diodora, Kokobile, you just win. And they just follow you. What about me? He pointed a trembling, gauntleted finger at Naruto. This isn't fair. I'm the one who's supposed to be the Harem King. Not you. The declaration, so pathetic and childish, hung in the air. Rias put her face in her hands. Akeno sighed. You're right, Issei, Naruto said, his voice quiet. Issei froze. What? It's not fair, Naruto said, standing up. He was calm, his hands in his pockets. You have the boosted gear. The power of a dragon. You should be the one they rely on. You should be the one who saves the day. But you're not. I can be, Issei stammered. I need a chance. I challenge you, right here, right now. Me, versus you, for the title. For all of them. He pointed at Rias, at Akeno, at Kaneko, at Asia, at Zenobia. Winner is the king. The real Harem King. Naruto just stared at him. The sheer, profound stupidity of the challenge was staggering. You dare call them a prize. Akeno's voice was suddenly ice. Her playful smile was gone, replaced by a look of cold, dangerous fury. That's not what Issei stammered. No, Naruto said, his voice cutting off Akeno. He looked at Rias. It's okay. Let's go outside. They were on the same patch of scorched earth where Kokobile had been sealed. The air was cold. The Grimoire peerage, plus Zenobia, stood on the sidelines, their expressions a mix of pity, annoyance, and dread. Okay, Issei, Naruto said, standing in the center of the field, his hands still in his pockets. You want a fight? Show me what the Red Dragon Emperor can do. This was it. This was Issei's chance, his last stand. You asked for it. He roared, pouring all his rage, his jealousy, his humiliation into his power. Boost, 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 boost. The mechanical voice echoed, each word a hammer blow of power. Issei's entire body was now wreathed in a crimson, draconic aura. The ground cracked under his feet. This was, by far, the most power he had ever dreamed of wielding. This is my power, he screamed, his voice distorted by the aura. This is me, he blurred. He was moving faster than Kiba, faster than Rias. He was a crimson comet of pure, unadulterated rage. He threw his punch, a full power, dragon-infused punch, aimed right at Naruto's chest. It connected. Boom. The sound was a sonic boom. A shock. K-wave of crimson energy and displaced air erupted from the impact, blasting the girls back, forcing them to shield their faces. A cloud of dust and debris obscured the point of impact. Issei stood there, his fist extended, panting, his arm vibrating from the sheer force of his own blow. I did it, he panted. I hit him. The dust cleared. Naruto hadn't moved. He hadn't flinched. He hadn't been pushed back. He hadn't budged. His feet were in the exact same spot. His black academy jacket was tattered, the shirt underneath vaporized, revealing a chest of lean, scarred muscle. But he was unharmed. That, Naruto said, his voice quiet, was a good punch. Issei's blood ran cold. No, I put everything. I know, Naruto said. Do it again. Die. Issei shrieked, his mind snapping. He unloaded a flurry of dragon-powered punches, each one fast enough to break the sound barrier, each one strong enough to shatter a mountain. Boom, 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 boom. The entire campus was shaking. It was a storm of crimson light and thunderous impacts. And Naruto just took it. He stood there, his hands in his pockets, letting Issei's ultimate, desperate rage-fueled assault wash over him like a light rain. After 10 seconds, Issei stopped. He was on his knees, panting, his aura flickering. He had nothing left. He had given it everything. And nothing. Are you done? Naruto asked, his voice still calm. No. Issei sobbed, a sound of pure, broken despair. No. He staggered to his feet. He pulled his arm back for one last punch. This time, Naruto moved. He didn't attack. He didn't counter. He just caught it. His hand, his bare, unpowered, human hand, shot out and clamped around Issei's crimson, blazing, draconic gauntlet. The sound stopped. The power died. The boost choked. It was as if a nuclear reactor had just been unplugged by a single, copper wire. Issei's arm was frozen, held in a grip of such absolute, casual, impossible strength that his mind stalled. You stopped it. Issei whispered, his eyes wide with terror. Is that what this is about, Issei? Naruto asked, his voice low, his blue eyes locking onto Issei's. A title, a Harem King. He still held Issei's fist. He looked over at the girls, who were watching, their faces pale and etched with a terrible, sad clarity. You want to be there, King. Naruto said, his voice quiet, but it cut across the field. You don't even know them. I do, Issei stammered. Rias Bushu is, she's the crimson-haired ruin princesses. And Akano-san is, she's the priestess of thunder. And, you see titles. Naruto cut him off, his voice like ice. You see trophies. You see parts. He looked at Rias. You see a president. I see a girl who was so terrified of her own power, she'd rather be caged by a monster like Riser than hurt someone she loves. She doesn't want a servant, Issei. Shish. Wants someone to tell her that her destruction doesn't make her a monster. Rias's breath hitched. A hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide, tears instantly welling. Naruto's gaze shifted to Akano. You see a sexy Oni-san, who likes to tease. I see a survivor, a girl who hates half of who she is, so she's built a wall of era and sadism, so no one can ever get close enough to abandon her, the way her father did. Akano's playful, dark smile froze, and cracked, and shattered. She looked away, her body trembling. His eyes found Kaneko. You see a lowly mascot. I see a soldier. She's so afraid of her own power, so terrified of becoming her sister, that she's locked her entire heart in a box. She's not quiet, she's screaming, and she just wants permission to be safe. Kaneko flinched. She buried her face in her hands, her small shoulders shaking. His gaze fell on Asia. You see a shy, cute nun. I see a refugee. Her entire world, her god, betrayed her, just because she was kind. She's not shy, she's traumatized. She's living in constant fear that the person she loves will cast her out, just for making a mistake. Asia let out a sob, a sound of pure, painful truth. Finally, his eyes landed on Zenobia. You see a cool, strong sword girl. I see an orphan. Her god is dead. Her mission is a lie. Her entire life has been erased. She's not a warrior. She's a lost child, looking for a reason to exist. A new purpose. Any purpose. Zenobia just stared at him, her face pale, her knuckles white on the hilt of her new sword. He saw it. He saw all of it. Naruto turned his gaze, his cold, clear, emotionally devastating gaze, back to Issei Hyodo. His hand was still, effortlessly, holding the Red Dragon Emperor at bay. You don't love them, Issei, Naruto said. His voice a quiet, final judgment. You just want to collect them. You don't want a harem. You want a trophy case. You don't want to protect them. You want to own them. He squeezed, and the boosted gear's armor creaked. That's why you will never be their king. And that's why, no matter how much power you have, you will always be a pawn. He let go. Issei stumbled back. The crimson aura was gone. The boosted gear retracted, vanishing, as if it, too, was ashamed. Issei Hyodo collapsed. He fell to his knees in the dirt, the fight, the rage, the identity, all of it, gone. He was empty. He had lost. It hadn't been a fight. It hadn't been a rivalry. It had been an execution. Silence. The only sound was the wind, and the quiet, controlled sobbing of the girls. Rias Gramori was the first to move. She wiped her eyes, her face a mask of new, terrible resolve. She walked, not to Issei, her pawn, but to Naruto. She stood in front of him, looked him in the eyes, and bowed. A deep, formal, Gramori bow. A bow of fealty. Issei, she said, her voice shaking, but clear. You are my friend. You are my precious servant. She looked up at Naruto. But he is our pillar. He sees us. He doesn't want to own us. He just protects us. He is our leader. Akano was. She walked up, her mask gone. Her face was tear-streaked, vulnerable, and free. My, she whispered, her voice thick. It seems I've been completely seen through. And I don't mind. She stood at Naruto's side. Kaneko just walked over. She stood to him, and, in a gesture that shocked everyone, she reached out and grabbed the tattered hem of his jacket, her small fist clutching it. She was his. Asia ran to him, sobbing, and hugged his arm. Naruto-san, Naruto-san. She couldn't even form words. Zenobia was the last. She walked up, her face pale but set. She stopped, and knelt. On one knee, like a knight. I have lost my god, she said, her voice a hollow but strong vow. I will not follow a child. I will follow you. Issei looked up. He was alone. Utterly, completely alone, kneeling in the dirt. The entire harem, Rias, Akano, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia, they were all, with Naruto. They were surrounding him. They had chosen him. They hadn't chosen a harem king. They had chosen a true king. A leader, a protector. The harem king title, the rivalry, the dream, it all died. It turned to ash in Issei's mouth. He had lost. Decisively. Chapter 8 End. Chapter 9. The Weaver's War. The silence on the scorched battlefield was a living thing. It was heavier and more suffocating than any pressure Kokubile had exerted. Issei Hyodo was a hollowed-out, kneeling shape in the dirt. His sobs having choked themselves into dry, shuddering gasps. The girls, Rias, Akano, Kaneko, Asia, and Zenobia, were a silent, unbreachable wall around Naruto. They were a peerage that had, in one, single, devastating moment, changed their king. Naruto looked at the broken boy on the ground. He had not taken pleasure in this. It was just necessary. He had seen this Athusa ND times in his own world. Talent wasted on ego, power squandered by a lack of purpose. He stepped away from the protective circle of women, his footsteps loud in the quiet. He stopped in front of Issei, looking down at the top of his head. Get up, Issei. Issei didn't move. He just knelt, his body shaking. I can't. I have nothing. You have the Red Dragon Emperor, Naruto said, his voice flat, not kind, but not cruel. You have a Longinus. You have the power to kill gods. You just don't have a reason to use it. Not a real one. He crouched, bringing himself down to Issei's level. The gesture was shockingly disarming. Your harem king dream, it's a joke, Naruto said, his voice quiet. It's a child's story. It's selfish. And it makes you weak. You're a pervert, Issei. That's fine. But right now, that's all you are. Issei looked up, his face a mess of tears and dirt. But, what else is there? Look, Naruto jested with his chin. Issei followed his gaze. He saw Rias, her face pale but resolved. He saw Akano, vulnerable and strong. He saw Kaneko, her fist still clutching Naruto's jacket. He saw Asia, who was looking at him. Issei, with a look of pure, heartbreaking pity. You want to be their king? Naruto asked, his voice low. Then stop trying to own them. Start trying to protect them. Find one of them, any of them, And find a reason to fight that's about her. And not about you. He stood up. Get up, Hyodo. The real war is here. And your pity party is a distraction. Naruto turned his back on him, a final, definitive act. He walked back to the girls. Rias, we need to talk to your brother. Now, the probes are just the beginning. Rias nodded, her king's composure returning, but her gaze was different. She was no longer looking at him as a variable. She was looking at him as her commander. I'll contact him. Akeno, prepare a high-pitched, screaming wail ripped through the air. It wasn't from a person. It was electronic. A purple magic circle, Azazel's, blazed to life. The fallen angel leader didn't step through. His face appeared, a frantic, holographic projection. The roguish, casual grin was gone, replaced by a look of sharp, clinical panic. It's begun, he yelled, his voice tinny and urgent. The invasion. It's not a probe anymore, kid. It's full scale. What? Sirzex, who had been watching the emotional execution from the sidelines, stepped forward. Where? Azazel. Everywhere. Azazel's projection roared. Rifts. Thousands of them. They're not hitting cities. They're not hitting people. They're hitting us. A main rift has opened over the Grimoire mainland. Over Lilith. Another one is tearing a hole in the sixth heaven. They're eating our sacred sites. They're draining the very essence of our power. Sirzex's face went white. Lilith. The heart of the Grimoire domain. My armies are engaging, Azazel continued, his voice cracking with static, and it's a slaughter. Our weapons. Our magic. It's just feeding them. It's not a fight, it's a buffet. We are powering our own extinction. Naruto. Kid. Your senjutsu. It's the only thing that works. I need you. We need you, in the underworld. Now. The holographic call shattered as a massive energy spike overloaded the connection. The world was, once again, silent. But this was the silence of the abyss. Sirzex, Naruto said, his voice the calm, cold center of the hurricane. He was already in sage mode. The golden aura blazed to life, a beacon in the dusk. Get me to your home. Now. I can't take all of you, Sirzex said, his face ashen. A full teleportation. You don't take us, Naruto said. He put a hand on Rias's shoulder. You're the anchor. Show me the scent of your home. Rias, confused, nodded. Sirzex activated his magic circle. Naruto closed his eyes, his sage senses tasting the unique energy signature of the Grimoire teleport. Got it, he said. He looked at his team. All of you, grab on. Quote, Akeno, Kaneko, Zenobia, and Asia, without a word, without a millisecond of hesitation, placed their hands on him. Sirzex, Naruto ordered, go, we'll be right behind you. Sirzex vanished in a flash of crimson light. Issei was still on the ground, watching. Wait, me, what about? Naruto looked at him, his golden eyes devoid of pity. Get up, or die here, your choice. He looked at Kiba, who was standing, torn, between his king and this new pillar. Kiba, you're with Rias. Go. Wait, Rias said. I'm not leaving you. You are, Naruto said, his voice an iron command. You're a king. Go. Defend your people. We'll handle the source. He didn't give her time to argue. He clapped his hands. Hiraishin no Jutsu. Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He hadn't needed a mark. He had tasted the destination. He had locked onto Sirzex's energy signature. In a flash of golden yellow light, faster than any demonic teleportation, Naruto and the four women vanished. They left Issei and Kiba standing on the field, alone. The transition was brutal. Naruto and the girls appeared, slammed, into existence in a world of crimson skies and purple, churning clouds. They were on a vast, obsidian plain, overlooking a gothic, impossible city of towering, elegant spires. This was the Grimoire capital, and it was under attack. A gash in the sky, a literal tear in reality, was visible. Miles wide, it pulsed with a cold, non-light, and from it, a flood of void puppets, ranging in size from small, skittering dogs to massive, kaiju-sized behemoths, was pouring onto the land. The Grimoire armies, tens of thousands of devils, were fighting them. And it was a massacre. Every blast of demonic power of destruction was eaten. Every shadow manipulation was absorbed. The devils were being harvested. My home, Rias whispered, appearing beside them with Kiba and Issei, her face a mask of pure horror. Searsex was already gone, a crimson meteor streaking toward the main battle. It's a war, Zenobia breathed, her hand gripping her sword hilt. This is worse than. It's strategic, Naruto said, his golden, sage-mode eyes scanning the battlefield, not with horror, but with analysis. They're not just feeding, they're anchoring. See, he pointed. The massive, kaiju-sized behemoths weren't fighting. They were standing on key ley lines of demonic power. And they were sucking the energy out of the ground. They were draining the underworld itself. Those are the pumps, Naruto said, his mind moving at a cage's speed. The little ones, they're distractions. We have to stop the pumps. How? Kiba yelled, drawing his sword. Searsex is trying. Look, he was right. Searsex Lucifer, in his true, terrifying form, a being of pure crimson destruction, was unleashing an ocean of his power on one of the behemoths. And the behemoth was drinking it. It swelled, its chitinous hide glowing, and then blasted a beam of pure, stolen, void-infused destruction. Right back at him. Searsex was blasted from the sky, crashing to the earth in a meteor-like impact. He lost. Rias stammered. My brother. His power is useless here. Naruto snapped. It's food. All of you, listen to me. Our magic, your magic, is poison. It is fuel for them. We do not use it. Then what do we do? Akeno cried out, her hands crackling with lightning, which she desperately tried to suppress. We support, Naruto said, his voice an ironclad command. You are fast. You are strong. You are physical. That is what we use. You are my new kunai. You are my distraction. You are my support. You do not go for the kill. You create the opening. I am the only one who takes the shot. He turned, his golden aura blazing. A sun in this crimson dark world. Akeno, you are lightning. You are speed. You are decoy. You do not use holy or demonic lightning. You use pure lightning. Natural lightning. You are harassment. You blind them. Akeno's eyes widened. Yes, Kaneko, Zenobia, you are power. You are my fists. You do not punch them. You shatter the ground under them. You break their legs. You unbalance them. You are my earth breakers. They both nodded, their faces set, grim. Kiba, you are speed. You are my blade. You do not try to cut them. Their hides are too thick. You sever their anchor points. You cut their feet from the ley lines. You are my scalpel. Kiba nodded, his fear gone, replaced by purpose. Asia flinched, terrified. What can I do? You, Naruto said, his voice softening, but still firm, are the most important one of all. You are my medic. You do not heal me. You heal them. When they get hit, you keep them in the fight. You are our lifeline. Asia's eyes, filled with terror, hardened with a new, desperate resolve. I will. Rias, Issei. They both looked at him. Issei was still shaking, but he was listening. You two are my reserve. Rias, your power is too dangerous. You are last resort. Issei, your boosted gear, it amplifies. The void, it eats amplification. You are a bomb. A suicide bomb. Do not use your power, unless I tell you to. You are my ace in the hole. Issei, for the first time, nodded. He was being given a job. A purpose. It was terrifying. But it was his. This is the first combined faction strike team, Naruto roared, his cage voice silencing the roar of the battle. Our target is the closest pump. We do not fight the swarm. We move. Now, he moved. He was a golden blur, a comet of senjutsu, blasting across the obsidian plain. His team, his peerage, was right with him. They moved as a unit. The swarm of smaller void puppets surged toward this new, delicious-looking power source. Akeno, scatter them, Naruto commanded. On it. Akeno flew, a streak of pure, natural lightning, her attack a whip that cracked the air, not the puppets. The sound and light was the decoy. Kaneko, Zenobia, groundfall. The two women leapt, high into the air, and slammed their fists and sword, not into the enemy, but into the ground. Kra-kum. The earth shattered, a massive fissure opening, swallowing a dozen of the skittering puppets. It didn't kill them, it trapped them. Kiba cut the path. Kiba blurred, a streak of black, his sword not aimed at the enemy, but at the cliff face beside them. He ran up it, his speed impossible, and slashed. Shng. A million tons of rock calved off the cliff, creating a wall, blocking the wave. Asia, Rias, Issei, keep up, Naruto yelled. In 30 seconds, they had bypassed the entire army, and were now standing at the feet of the behemoth. The pump. It was a mountain of shifting, chitinous void. It was so big, it had its own gravitational pull. It was the thing that had swatted Circex from the sky. It turned. Its maw, a swirling, purple vortex, looked at them. It sensed Naruto's senjutsu, and it screamed, a digital, physical, shriek that cracked the very air. It hated this power. It raised a colossal arm, a mountain of black chitin, to crush them. Team, engage, Naruto roared. Now, this was the test. Akeno, blind it. Akeno shot into the sky, a bolt of pure lightning, and unleashed a storm of flashes, right at its maw. Krakathoom. The creature recoiled, its maw snapping shut, its senses overloaded by the pure, non-magical energy. Kaneko, Zenobia, break its knees. The two women slammed into the creature's left leg. They didn't hit the chitin. They hit the joint. It was a synchronized attack, a senjutsu-less version of a Tsunade Sakura punch. Crrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr behemoth roared in agony, teetering. Kiba, sever the anchor. Kiba was already there. He was a blur around its other foot. The one still connected to the ley line. His blade flashed, not at the foot, but at the ground. He was carving the ley line, cutting the flow of demonic energy to the creature. Shi-NG, Shi-NG, Shi-NG. He severed the connection. The pump was unplugged. Now, Asia, Naruto roared. Xenovia, on her follow-through, had been swatted by a secondary limb. Her arm was broken. She landed, hard, near Asia. Asia, her face a mask of terror, did not run. She ran to Xenovia, her hands blazing with the pure, emerald light of twilight healing. The snap of Xenovia's bone resetting was audible. The behemoth was teetering. Its leg was broken. Its anchor was cut. Its senses were blind. It was open. It had been 4 seconds. The creature, in its panic, opened its maw, its last defense, to suck in all power. And Naruto was there. He was in the air, his golden aura blazing, Kurama's chakra mixing with his sage mode. He was a son of life and fury. In his hands, he was not holding a Rasengan. He was not holding a Biju bomb. He was holding 1,000 futon Rasenshuriken. He had created 1,000 shadow clones. And all of them had made one. And all of them had given it to him. He was holding a singularity of pure, senjutsu-infused wind. A star of anti-void power. This, he roared, his voice the combined sound of 1,000 Narutos, is not food. He shoved the son of Rasenshurikens right down the creature's maw. The world went white. There was no sound. There was just light. A blossoming, golden erasure. The high-pitched wail of the wind. The digital scream of the behemoth. All of it was consumed. When the light faded, there was nothing. A crater, a mile wide and half a mile deep, was all that was left. The behemoth, the swarm, the mountain, it was gone. Naruto landed, hard, on the edge of the crater, his sage mode flickering. He was panting, steam rising from his body. That had taken everything. His team, Rias, Akeno, Kiba, Kaneko, Xenovia, Asia, and Issei, were staring at the crater. At the result, they had won. They had followed his plan. And they had won. A cheer, a distant, massive, roaring cheer, went up from the devil armies in the distance. They had seen it. They had seen their salvation. Sears X Lucifer landed to them, his armor cracked, his face covered in soot. He looked at the crater. He looked at his sister. He looked at her peerage, all of them, alive. And he looked at Naruto. The The rift, Searsex panted. It's faltering. You cut its anchor. Naruto just nodded, catching his breath. He looked up at the gash in the sky. It was smaller, but it wasn't closed. That was one, Naruto said, his voice a low, exhausted growl. He looked at the thousands of other rifts, still visible, all across the horizon. The war has just begun. Chapter 9 End. Chapter 10. The Unwavering Pillar. The Grimoire. Teleportation circle blazed to life on the floor of the Kuo Academy Gymnasium, its crimson light a stark, frantic pulse in the ruined hall. Searsex Lucifer stumbled through, his regal crimson armor cracked and smoking. He was followed by Rias and her peerage, Akeno, Kiba, and the others, all of them bearing the grime, the exhaustion, and the sheer, undiluted terror of the battle for the underworld. They had won, but it was a victory that felt like a single skirmish in an endless, losing war. The rifts, they're faltering, Searsex panted, leaning on his sister for support. He looked at Naruto, who had just reappeared in a flash of yellow, his team with him, all of them breathing hard. That thing you did. That light, it severed the connection. The rifts over the Grimoire lands, they're closing. Before a single word of relief could be spoken, 2 more lights tore through the air. Azazel appeared, 12 wings splayed, his trench coat riddled with smoking holes. Michael, the seraph, was right behind him. His white robes torn, his golden hair matted with something that looked like black, oily dust. It's the same in heaven, Michael said, his voice, usually a melodic chord, now a ragged whisper. And the Grigori outposts, the rifts, they retreated. It's re-evaluating, Azazel growled, his face grim. He wasn't smiling. That pump, that was an anchor. You didn't just kill a monster, kid. You blinded it, you cut its hand off. It's angry. It's not just harvesting anymore. It's focusing. Naruto, his sage mode faded, was just a kid in a tattered tracksuit, his chest heaving. He had poured an ocean of power into that final, combined Rasenshuriken. He was running on fumes. He looked at the 3 faction leaders. The most powerful beings in this world. And they were all broken. They were beaten. And they were all looking at him. It's coming here, Naruto said. It wasn't a guess. It was a certainty. His sage senses, even this depleted, could feel it. The original tear. The wound he had made. It was throbbing. It was a beacon. It's not interested in your lands anymore. It's not interested in your power. It's interested in me. The anomaly. The poison. He was right. The very air in the gymnasium, in the city, in the world, began to change. It wasn't a sound. It was a drop in pressure. A cessation. The crickets stopped. The wind died. The hum of the city vanished. What is that? Asia whispered, her hands clasped to her chest, her twilight healing glowing uselessly. It's here, Zenobia breathed, drawing her demonic sword, her knuckles white. She was a knight, kneeling, waiting for her king to give the order. The sky tore. It was not a gentle tear. It was a violent, vicious ripping sound, as if the heavens themselves were a canvas being slashed by a god's knife. The original gash that only Naruto could see, was now visible to everyone. It was a wound of pure, primal nothingness, a line of anti-reality that stretched from one horizon to the other. And from it descended. It was not a monster. It was not a creature. It was a god of the void. It was humanoid, perhaps 50 feet tall, its form a shifting, shimmering absence. Its skin was not skin, but a hole in the world, a body of pure, light-devouring nothingness. Where a face should be, there was only a vortex, a swirling, cosmic maw that inhaled the very light of the day, making the world grow dim. This was Nile, the Void Weaver, its main avatar. It did not roar. It did not speak. It simply was. And its presence was an erasure. My God, Searsex breathed, his power. His Mao's aura, flickering, like a candle in a hurricane. This, Azazel said, his voice a low, terrified growl, his 12 wings spreading, is a divine-scale threat. It's eclipsed anything in the Great War. It's stronger than God was. The Avatar looked down. It saw the devils. It saw the angels. It saw the fallen. And it ignored them. Its gaze, its purpose, locked onto the one, tiny, golden speck of light that was poison to it. It locked onto Naruto. So, Naruto said, his voice quiet. He rolled his shoulders, a simple, human gesture. It's me, then. Kid. No. Azazel roared. You're drained. You can't. We must buy him time. Michael shouted, his seraph's light blazing. We must give him everything. He is the fourth pillar, Searsex said, his own true crimson aura of destruction erupting. His power returning with a vengeance. And we are his shield. Azazel, Michael, now, all of it. The three factions acted as one. For the underworld, Searsex roared. He unleashed his true power. Not a beam, but an ocean, a tsunami of pure, crimson destruction, a wave of antimatter that could erase continents. For heaven, Michael screamed, his 12 wings anova. He did not throw a spear. He became one. He was the fury of his dead father, a pillar of pure, holy light that burned the very air. For the Grigori, Azazel bellowed. He didn't just attack, he opened his research. A dozen dimensional pockets tore open, and artifacts, artificial Longinus, failed experiments, a barrage of forbidden power, lanced out. The combined, ultimate power of the three factions, the full might of the DXD world, slammed into the avatar of Nile. The sound was nothing. There was no sound. The avatar shuddered. It opened its maw, and it inhaled. The power of destruction was eaten. The light of heaven was drunk. The forbidden weapons were consumed. The avatar grew. It swelled from 50 feet to 100. Its skin rippled, not with damage, but with power. It was stronger. It had fed. No, Searsex whispered, his aura gone. He was empty. It ate all of it. The avatar raised its hand. A hand of pure, starless night. And it swatted. It swatted the three faction leaders, as if they were insects. Searsex, Michael, and Azazel were blasted from the sky, crashing into the ruined gymnasium, broken, beaten, useless. The strongest of this world, defeated, in one single move. No, Rhea screamed, her voice a sound of pure, bottomless despair. No, brother. The avatar ignored her. It lowered its gaze, back to Naruto. It had finished the appetizer. Now, for the meal. He's drained, Kiba stammered, his sword shaking in his hand. We can't. Our plan, we can't hurt that thing. No, Naruto said. He was panting. He closed his eyes. He had to. One last time. He pulled on the life of the planet. It was screaming in terror, but it gave him what he asked. The golden aura flickered to life. Sage mode. It was weak. It was ragged, but it was there. Team. Naruto roared, his voice cracking with the strain. Same plan. It's just a bigger target. Go. They didn't hesitate. They were terrified. They were outclassed. They were insects. But they were his. Akeno. Blind it. Akeno screamed, a war cry of pure, desperate fury, and unleashed a storm of pure lightning. It splashed against the avatar's face. The avatar didn't flinch. It raised one finger, and flicked. A tiny spear of void lanced out. It grazed Akeno's wing. She screamed as the void ate her fallen heritage. Her wing dissolved into dust. She fell from the sky, broken. Kaneko, Xenovia, legs. The two knights slammed into its ankle. It was like punching a mountain. The avatar stamped its foot. The shockwave shattered the ground. Xenovia's sword disintegrated. Kaneko was blasted back, her arms broken. Kiba, run! Naruto roared. Kiba blurred, but the void was faster. A tendril of shadow shot from the avatar's back, and impaled him. It lifted him into the air. No! Kiba! Rias shrieked. Asia, heal them! Naruto bellowed. Asia was running, her twilight healing blazing, tears streaming down her face. She ran to Akeno. She ran to Kaneko, but she couldn't. They were all. It was a massacre. His team, his plan, was shattered. In seconds, the avatar looked at Naruto. It tossed Kiba's body aside. It raised its hand, to finally erase the poison. No, a crimson blur, a crimson comet. Issei Hyodo. He wasn't attacking. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't screaming about harems. His face was a mask of pure, primal, terror, and protection. He was not aiming for Nile. He was flying, his boosted gear at full, desperate, power, at Asia. He tackled her. He covered her body, with his own, as a second void. Tendrils slammed into the ground where she had been. Boom! Issei screamed as the void slammed into his back. His balance breaker armor, his dragon scale, cracked and splintered, but it held. He rolled, cradling Asia, shielding her. He skidded to a halt at Naruto's feet. He was broken. He was bleeding. But he had done it. His one act. He had saved her. Issei. Asia whispered, her eyes wide, cradled in his arms. Hey! Issei coughed, blood trickling from his lips. He looked up at Naruto. His eyes, they weren't jealous. They weren't angry. They were clear. Guess. I'm not a king, huh? He looked at his boosted gear. The voice of Dedrag boomed. Partner, you are a true dragon. Naruto. Issei gasped, reaching up. My power. It boosts. It amplifies. It's food for him, right? Naruto, his eyes wide, nodded. But, Issei grinned, a bloody, terrible grin. It can transfer, too. Right. That's its real power. Giving, not taking. Naruto's blood ran cold. He knew. Take it, Issei whispered. Take all of it. This pervert's dream. You can use it. You can save them. He slammed his dragon gauntlet onto Naruto's chest. Issei. No. Dedrag roared. It will drain you. It will kill you. Shut up. DDRAIG. Issei screamed, his voice ripping from his throat. It's my choice. My sacrifice. Not a pawn's. Not a pervert's. A man's. He roared. Boosted gear. Gift. Juggernaut transfer. The crimson light, the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, left Issei. It poured, in a violent, roaring torrent, into Naruto. Issei's armor shattered. His body went limp. He collapsed onto the ground. Unconscious. Empty, but alive. And Naruto roared. His sage mode, his drained, flickering senjutsu, exploded. It collided with the infinite boost of the dragon. The golden aura turned crimson gold. His power, his chakra, multiplied, 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. He was vibrating. He was a walking, breathing divinity. But it wasn't enough. It's still not enough. Naruto roared. The avatar was raising its hand. It sensed the threat. Then take ours. Searsex, Azazel, Michael. They were staggering to their feet. Broken, beaten, but alive. Take it, Naruto-kun. Searsex yelled, thrusting his hand out. A wisp of crimson, his last ember of destruction, flew from him, into Naruto. Take it, kid, all of it, Azazel roared. A spear of black fallen light, flew from him, into Naruto. Take it, pillar, Michael whispered. A feather of pure holy light, fled from him, into Naruto. Demonic, holy, fallen, draconic, and senjutsu, Naruto, absorbed, everything. His body, became a nexus. His aura was no longer one color. It was a swirling, cosmic vortex of gold, crimson, white, and black. He was everything. He was balanced. He looked at the avatar. The avatar hesitated. It felt fear. I see you, Naruto whispered. His voice was now layered. With his voice, with Kurama's, with Dedrag's, with Searsex's, Michael's, and Azazel's. It was the voice of a world. You're not a monster, he said. He was looking, inside the void. Past the hunger, past the nothing. You're just lonely. You're cold. You're an anomaly, just like me. The avatar recoiled. He had found it, its core, its mind. A single, cold, sentient point of nothingness that just wanted. I can't kill you, Naruto whispered. You're everything else. But I can send you home. He raised his hand. He created one last Rasenshuriken. It was not wind. It was not gold. It was everything. It was a star, a singularity of pure, balanced power. Senjutsu, demonic, holy, fallen, dragon. It was the ultimate attack. It was the power of a united world. Go home, Naruto commanded. He didn't throw it. He was there. He phased through the avatar's defense. He plunged his hand, his weapon, his world, into the creature's core. He didn't detonate it, he unleashed it, he severed the avatar from its dimension. He used the power to seal the tear. The avatar of Nile looked at him, and in the vortex of its maw, for one single instant, Naruto saw gratitude. The world went white. The sky screamed. The gash, the wound in reality, snapped shut. The avatar dissolved. Not in dust, not in light. It just wasn't. It was gone. The silence was deafening. The pressure was gone. The oppressive purple sky faded. The sun came out. Naruto fell. He was just Naruto. He crashed to his knees, his body empty. He collapsed onto the scorched earth, unconscious. He woke to the smell of lemon-scented polish and Earl Grey tea. He opened his eyes. He was in the Occult Research Club building. It was rebuilt. The hole in the wall was gone. The mahogany desk was new. The velvet sofas were clean. Sunlight streamed through the window. He's awake. The voice was Asia's. He sat up. He was on the sofa. And the room was full. Rias was at her desk, but her chair was empty. She was standing by the window. Akeno was there, on black fallen wing and one white angel wing out, unashamed. Kiba was leaning against the wall, his arm in a sling, but smiling. Kaneko was curled in her usual chair, munching on a chocolate bar. Zenobia was sitting on the other sofa, reading a manga, her expression intense. Naruto-san. Asia burst into tears and flung herself at him. You've been asleep for a week. A week, he croaked. You saved us, Rias said, her voice soft. She walked over, her eyes clear. You saved everything. Issei was the first word he said. He's okay, Kiba said, grinning. He's still Issei, but different. D-Drake drained him, but he's recovering. He's changed. He actually asked Asia on a real date. Not a pervert one. Asia blushed a crimson red. He's very sweet when he's not shouting. The world is scarred, Akeno said, her voice soft, her mask gone. The factions are broken, but united. Sirzex, Azazel, and Michael have formed a permanent alliance. The four-faction alliance. Naruto looked at her. Rias smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had ever seen from her. You idiot, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You are the fourth pillar. You are our leader. My king. It was not a political statement. It was a confession. Naruto looked around the room. At this family, Akeno, Kaneko, Kiba, Asia, Zenobia, Rias, even Issei. He had lost his home. He had grieved. He had been lost. He looked out the window. The same window from chapter 1. He had been alone, then. He wasn't alone anymore. Kaneko got up, walked over, and pushed a chocolate bar into his hand. You earned it, she whispered. Naruto looked at the chocolate. He looked at Rias's smiling, tear-filled eyes. He looked at Akeno's open, honest gaze. He looked at his new home. The Harem King. It was a stupid, childish joke. He had never competed. He had never tried. He had just been himself. And he had won. Not a title, but a family. Okay, Naruto said, his voice hoarse. He smiled. So, who's hungry? I'm starving. Chapter 10 end.